Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 1-20. Chapter 0001 Dragon King of the Sea. The bright moon is born in the sea, the end of the world. What's behind the horizon? Is it at the same time, or if they are next to each other? Qin used his few poetry cells to recall the knowledge of his student days. It was one of the few pleasures he had left. Inexplicably crossing into this world, on the vast sea, he is alone, alone with a dragon. He has nothing to do except look at the blue sky and swim in the sea. The poet describes how beautiful, magnificent and gorgeous the sea is, but if you experience it for yourself, you will find that it is all bullshit. The sea is so big that even if he turned into a 20-meter-long sea dragon, he swam for a full week, and he couldn't see a single trace of land. Of course, there are still advantages to turning into a dragon. At least you don't have to worry about those ferocious ocean beasts in the sea staring at him. Qin called it Longwei for the time being. A few days ago, there was a sea snake with no long eyes, which was over 30 meters long. The other party stared at him, but Qin glared at him, scared to run away. In addition, the sea dragon also has a peculiar ability, that is, manipulating the sea water. The source of power is probably the two dragon horns above the dragon head. As long as Qin thoughts move, he can gather a huge amount of water and call for wind and rain, which is quite a bit of the power of the dragon family in myths and legends. The only question is how to change back to human. Is it possible to always exist in the form of a sea dragon? In myths and legends, can't dragons become human? For example, the little dragon girl. The story of Zhu Baji and Xiaolongnu was slandering in my heart, and suddenly, a subtle voice sounded in my mind. Remaining time for forced transformation, 1 hour. Qin was taken aback, the dragon twisted, and the sea was surging. He was so frightened that he immediately calmed down, and finally let the waves calm down. Who? He asked after making up his mind. Ask the host to absorb more mysterious power, and open up more transformations. That mysterious voice was not like a human being, it had no emotion, it was cold, and it was like a machine. Wait, transform. What are you? The sea dragon is just one of thousands of incarnations. More power is needed to unlock more powerful incarnations. Pause, the voice said again. Every time the transformation is turned on, it will be forced to last for 7 days. During this time, the host cannot be released. This time, Qin finally understood, that is to say, in another hour, I can turn back into a human being. Then again, what exactly are you? I'm a fantasy gene, and with enough mystical power, the host can turn into any fantasy creature. It turns out that a glimmer of enlightenment flashed in Qin eyes. All in all, it was probably some kind of mysterious gene that merged with him to turn him into any fantasy creature, provided it needed some kind of energy. The last question, he asked after thinking about it, where is this? Here is. The voice gradually faded, and then disappeared from my mind. Qin opened his mouth and was speechless. Just as he was about to try to call, his ear VV moved, and he suddenly heard a sound from several miles away. This is not such a miraculous ability, it is probably similar to hearing a sound tens of meters away in a human state. As long as he is in the sea, his sea dragon transformation can perceive a huge range, and the specific size has not been carefully studied. Is that a boat? Qin was calm, his perception extended into the distance, and his eyes were projected at the same time. You can see vague shadows, probably ships, and big ships, too. If there is a boat, there will be people, go and see. Qin was a little excited, and he could finally meet people, but when he thought that he couldn't release his transformation now, he had to quietly approach from under the sea. The sea dragon's parade was extremely fast, faster than any kind of ship he knew. In just a few minutes, he had lurked under the two ships. After getting closer, he could feel the appearance of the two ships more clearly. One of them is very subtle. It seems that there is no mechanical power structure on the bottom of the boat, but two huge sea snakes are carrying it. As for the other ship, it was more subtle. It was not an ironclad ship, and it was completely different from the sailboat that Qin Yang knew. On the deck of the ship, there were many cannons, which was obviously some kind of warship. It looks familiar. Is that the pirate flag? The sea dragon's sight pierced the water and landed on the deck of one of the ships. On the top of the main mast, a flag was hoisted. Suddenly, Qin Yang felt 2 lines of sight. Then, 2 huge snake heads dived into the sea water and asked him from a distance of more than 10 meters. Hiss. One of the snake heads spit out a snake letter, giving some kind of warning. Shut up. Qin Yang glared at it, and there was a certain meaning in his eyes. The 2 Orochi were really startled, and then fell silent, not daring to make trouble. If you don't run, you are amazing. Qin Yang complained. He had encountered many large marine creatures before, and he basically ran away when he saw him. These 2 snakes were considered firm-willed. Just thinking about it, he turned his attention to the boat again. On the deck of one of the ships, stood a woman, tall, with delicate and fair skin, long black hair, and an extremely delicate face, like a fairy in a painting. Lord Hancock, Salome looks a little strange. Beside the woman, another woman whispered. The Salome she was talking about was a big python with pink spots, not as vicious as a python at all, but like a pet. The woman called Hancock also frowned and looked at her pet suspiciously. Hi, Salome spit out a snake letter somewhere on the sea. At this moment, on the deck of the other ship, a man in a military uniform and a cloak of justice said in a deep voice, Boya Hancock, how are you thinking? Should you accept the title of Shichibukai, or choose to give it up? Once you give up, I will sink you here. Suddenly, his complexion changed slightly, and his sharp eyes suddenly swept to a sea surface. What, snooping around here? With a scolding, the man raised his hand suddenly, and in an instant, the surrounding temperature rose sharply, his fist turned into a big lava hand, and plunged into the sea. This big lava hand just touched the sea surface, and immediately a large amount of sea water evaporated, and the surrounding area was filled with mist, which would not disperse. Roar. The next moment, a dragon roar sounded. The sea was rough and the waves burst. A behemoth suddenly burst out from the bottom of the sea. Mouths in surprise. The man on the warship's eyes widened. Dragon. As soon as he finished speaking, the giant dragon in the sea spit out human words. Human, you offended me. When this remark came out, it was even more shocking. Chapter 0002 _ The Patron Saint of Nine Snake Island. Human, you offended me. Heilong spit out human words, fierce and powerful, and in a fit of anger, the calm sea suddenly set off a wave of waves, and the 2 large ships kept swaying. Small $% said family text * shui $network. Everyone on the boat looked panicked, terrified of this unknown scene. Dragon. A talking dragon. There is such a monster hidden in the windlass belt. Qin Yang was a little helpless, and being called a monster was a bit unpleasant, although his current appearance was indeed very unfriendly. The big hand of the lava just came down, hit the sea, and touched his body. This feeling is like an ordinary person being poured over his head by hot boiling water. He subconsciously released Longwei out of anger, although the temperature was right for him, it's nothing at all. With his eyes locked on the person who had done it before, Qin Yang immediately felt familiar. A white hat, with a cloak of justice on his shoulders, with a grim look and a strong figure. You Marine Admiral, Akainu. The dragon spoke in a low voice, and after speaking, he swept to the other ship. The woman headed on the deck was as beautiful as a fairy in a painting. Like Akainu, this woman was one of the few people with a calm expression. This woman is Empress Boya Hancock. Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and the memories in his mind kept surging. You actually have wisdom. At this time, Akainu said with a little surprise, it's not the wisdom of the beast level, it's the wisdom of the higher level. What are you? It's not a normal sea king. Lao Su is human. Qin Yang sneered in his heart, but said in his mouth, sea kings. It turns out that, for Marine Admiral, sea kings are not worth mentioning. For this kind of ridicule, Akainu snorted coldly and said, "It doesn't matter what you are, since you dare to appear here, I will kill you." As soon as the voice fell, he raised his hand again, and suddenly the lava rolled, and the surrounding temperature rose sharply. His right arm turned into crimson magma, the magma formed into a huge palm, and he grabbed it violently towards Qin Yang. "If you don't agree with one word, you will start a fight. It really is a lawless world of pirates." He couldn't help but tut his heart, but Qin Yang didn't panic at all. When there was a loud roar of dragons, the two high-spirited dragon horns emitted a faint blue light. The next moment, the sea surface was controlled by some invisible force, and suddenly formed 4 waterspouts from both sides, like living creatures. Chi-Chi strangled towards the lava big hand. Boom! The power of water and fire intertwined, and the two tyrannical forces collided head-on. After the loud noise, the water mist that filled the sea suddenly appeared. Chi-Chi-Chi! The fog obscured the vision, turning the entire sea into bizareness. "What?" Akainu's face twitched, surprised, "can control the sea water." Not only him, but even the Empress on another ship felt incredible. Sea kings are not uncommon. For people of their identities and strengths, a sea king with a body size of tens of meters is just the end of a slap to death, but the sea dragon in front of him is beyond common sense. "The power of the devil fruit," a colonel murmured in shock on the marine warship. Devil fruit. In the thick fog, Qin Yang suddenly felt a sense of enlightenment. This is the world of One Piece, King of Pirates. There are supernatural powers. For example, Akainu in front of you has the ability to incarnate lava, which comes from the Logia devil fruit magma fruit. Mysterious power, that he needs to start his new transformation seems to have to be considered in this direction. Thinking of this, he immediately raised a question in his mind. "Hey, what, the mysterious power you said, is the devil fruit suitable?" The expected answer took a few seconds to sound, and the answer was only 2 words. "Comply." After another pause, the voice said rigidly, "Please note, host, I'm not that, I'm a fantasy gene." Sure enough. Qin Yang thought happily that the concept of devil fruit is much clearer than the mysterious power. Although in this world, it is not very easy to obtain devil fruit, but at least it is clear, and if you have money, you can buy this thing directly. For example, you can buy one for hundreds of millions of Baileys. Of course it is not the strongest Logia, but rather rubbish fruit. However, to Qin Yang, it doesn't matter what kind of attribute it is, he didn't eat it himself anyway. At this moment, someone on the deck of the 9 snake pirates suddenly thought of something and exclaimed. "Is it the patron saint? The patron saint of our 9 snakes?" Boya Hancock, who had been watching the battle, frowned and looked at the speaker in confusion. "This person is called Amanda, a person who has a lot of research on history, and once served as an assistant to the previous emperor." Seeing her look at herself, Amanda immediately said, "Lord Hancock, we have always had a legend on 9 Snake Island. Legend has it that a long time ago, there was a patron saint who guarded us, and the windless belt of 9 Snake Island was not formed naturally. It is the power of the patron saint. 9 Snake Island, somewhere in the windless belt. The windless zone is literally. In this sea area, there are no wind and waves, and the sailboats cannot sail at all. Therefore, Jew Snake Island is almost isolated from the outside world. At the same time, the windless zone also protects Jew Snake Island." Having said this, Amanda paused and shook his head again. "However, the creation of the windless belt may be exaggerated, but the patron saint is indeed true. There are clear records in ancient documents, and there are images, if you look carefully. Now the patron saint is hidden in the thick fog, barely able to see the shadow. This shadow is exactly the same as the picture on the document." Seeing Qin Yang manipulating the seawater before, Amanda immediately thought of the legend on the island, and when she saw the vague shadow, she was extremely convinced. Her research into history is deep, hence the first discovery. After hearing this, Boya Hancock was silent for a moment. That's just a legend. No, Mr. Hancock, the existence of the Patronus is also recorded in our history. I can find those documents for you when I go back. The man seemed to suddenly open his mind, and the witty words continued. A year ago, you defeated the big monster, Gorgon, in the Central Sea, didn't you? About Gorgon, there is also a record in that document. It is true. Then the Patronus must also be true. Speaking of this, the woman who spoke suddenly became excited and shouted, the patron saint must be protected, and Marine must not be hurt. All of a sudden, a boatload of women suddenly moved. Most of them have heard of this legend, and a year ago, their emperor, Empress Boya Hancock, did indeed see the legendary monster. And defeated it, which also proved that the Patronus does seem to exist. Protect the patron saint. Is it really our patron saint? Lord Hancock. Immediately, countless gazes all looked at the Empress. Seeing this, Boya Hancock caught his breath. The big monster Gorgon, she was the one who defeated and killed it. That's right, that's what she said to the citizens of Nine Snake Island. But really, it was just an excuse to cover up something. Gorgon does not exist. She hasn't seen it either. However, she couldn't say this, because she couldn't deny the existence of that secret. Since Gorgon cannot be denied, and its existence must be acknowledged, then, at this moment, she can only agree with the authenticity of the Patronus. Deep breath, Boya Hancock's face turned cold, and a pair of delicate eyes suddenly swept towards Akainu, and said coldly, Marine, it is the patron saint of our Nine Snake Island, and you are provoking your concubine by attacking it. Chapter 0003 Depressed Akainu. Marine, it is the patron saint of our Nine Snakes Island. If you attack it, it is a provocation to your concubine. Boya Hancock spoke coldly, which immediately made Vivi froze in the conflict scene. Novel Literature Network. Hearing this suddenly, everyone on Marine's side looked dumbfounded. Patronus. Just kidding, never heard of such a thing. Akainu even snorted and said, Boya Hancock, it's too late to take back what you just said. Do you want to bring destruction to your country? Hearing that, the Empress was isho, and all of a sudden it was like 100 flowers blooming. All of a sudden, all the sailors on the warship showed an obsessed look. No matter what you do, the concubine will be forgiven. The concubine is too beautiful. Boya Hancock's posture was high, the same is true for you. You want to point fingers at the concubine hum. A faint nasal sound revealed his posture. Marine under the world government, she doesn't care at all. However, hearing such rude words, the expressions of Marine's obsession did not diminish but instead increased, and they shouted excitedly one by one. Hancock, Hancock. The most beautiful woman in the world. Forgive you, forgive you. Seeing that the sea soldiers under his command were so unbearable, Akainu's face immediately turned ashen. A bunch of idiots. He glanced at everyone angrily, but it made many sailors a little sober. At this time, the water mist dissipated, and the three parties stared at each other, and the scene suddenly fell into a confrontation stage. Qinyang opened his long eyes and looked at the Empress strangely. Of course, he heard the conversation between the Empress and another woman just now. The guardian angel of Nine Snake Island, the ghost knows what it is. And the reason is even more nonsense. The big monster Gorgon exists, so the Patronus also exists. This Qinyang knew very well that in order to cover up her own secrets, the Empress did not hesitate to fabricate a big lie and deceive the people of the island. Others don't know, the Empress guessed very clearly in her heart, whereas his patron saint, it is simply a sea dragon who suddenly appeared from an unknown origin. This girl tried her best to cover up her secret. Qinyang thought playfully in his heart, but his face was still calm, nosy. What Akainu, Admiral, in the realm of the ocean, I can deal with it myself. Command of the world government, one of Marine's three-peak combat powers, Admiral Akainu. Its combat power is indeed exceedingly powerful, and it is basically the world's top level, but as a devil fruit person, it has a fatal weakness, that is, the fear of seawater. Unfortunately, Qin Yang, as a sea dragon, has a handy control over the seawater. When it comes to fighting, he is completely true. Although he has no combat experience, his innate advantage is too great, and his confidence can make up for it. Hearing Qin Yang's ignorant remarks, the Empress raised her eyebrows, and a pair of beautiful eyes swept over in annoyance. "What are you looking at?" Qin Yang breathed out his dragon's breath and said calmly, "Just tell the truth." "HMPH, I don't know what's wrong." The Empress's slender eyebrows trembled, becoming more and more annoyed. But this annoyed meaning could not be radiated. After all, Qin Yang was now recognized as a patron saint, so she had to turn her cold eyes to Akainu. In contrast, Akainu was even more angry. Dealing with a rather peculiar sea king, it will turn out like this. If you continue to shoot, it will become the opposite of the Empress. I'm not afraid of being an enemy. The opponent is a pirate, and he is Marine. Marine and pirates are naturally hostile. However, in recent years, the situation has changed, and the pirates are so powerful that Martial Marine has to come up with a way to fight against the 4 emperors of the pirates. Shichibukai. Compared with a female emperor, the formation of Shichibukai is more important, and this is his task. Thinking like this, Akainu couldn't help but glanced at Qin Yang, and said inwardly, "Sea dragon, are you a sea king who ate devil fruit?" The scientists should be interested in this news. As for the Patronus, do you think I'm a fool? Thinking of this, he took a deep breath and slowly dissipated the lava state. Suddenly, the temperature dropped and he returned to nature. "Since you say so, let's just think so," Akainu said solemnly. "Boya Hancock, about Shichibukai." However, before his words were finished, the Empress interrupted directly. "The concubine is not interested, get out." "You." Akainu's eyes turned cold. "You are courting death." Between words, the high temperature that had just faded suddenly began to rise again. "If you don't accept the title of Shichibukai, your 9-Snake Island and your daughter country will be destroyed because of you. Do you think the windless belt can protect you? Now that Marine has a battleship that moves without wind, the next time we meet, it will be Buster." Called. Threats. Qin Yang suddenly opened his mouth and said with a chuckle, "Give it up. Do you think this woman will be threatened by you? Marine Admiral has to rely on her mouth, which is really shameful. You want to beat me to accompany you, just as I am getting used to my own strength." Just now someone spoke out to protect him, and now he is reciprocating. Qin Yang is still a person with clear grievances, although he does not need any protection. Damn. Akainu's face became more and more ugly and gloomy. A sea dragon is difficult to deal with. If you add the female emperor, even if he does not have the confidence to retreat. Even if he can win, the entire warship will probably be sunk by that sea dragon. Of course, the key is seawater control. This ability is the natural nemesis of fruit ability. Thinking of this, Akainu suddenly calmed down, completely unable to see the previous anger. "Queen Boya Hancock, I hope you won't regret your stupid decision later." Of the cloak of justice, Akainu turned and left the bow. "Let's go." A huge warship slowly sailed away, gradually turning into a black spot and disappearing into the distance on the sea level. At this moment, the words of Fantasy Gene sounded in Qin Yang's mind. Scan to mysterious power, bearing 3 o'clock direction, distance 20 meters. The current host's transformation ability, Sea Dragon. First transformation, Sea Dragon. Star rating. Ability 1, Ocean Current Manipulation. Ability 2, Longway. Ability 3, Unlocked. An illusory interface suddenly appeared in my mind. Qin Yang was stunned. There are still stars. Chapter 00419_Old Queen. And stars. Qin Yang was stunned, carefully, watched, for a moment, and quickly understood the meaning. Yes, Fantasy Gene said. A full star is a 5-star level, and each increase of 1 star unlocks an ability. The current host sea dragon has transformed into a 2-star level, so it has 2 powers. Ocean current manipulation and longway. These 2 abilities are indeed powerful. The former does not need to be elaborated. It is very good just for restraining the fruit ability. However, longway, currently because he is unable to master it, the formidable power has not yet shown. Qin guessed that this was probably a power similar to hockey. Thinking of this, he asked, how to upgrade the star rating. It needs mysterious power. Take devil fruit as an example, absorb it, you can improve. So that's the case, Qin thought, and said, what did you say you scanned just now? Devil fruit. It's a mysterious force, at 3 o'clock, about 20 meters away. What it is, unknown. 20 meters away. Qin looked sideways, and what he saw was a ship, the ship of the 9 snake pirates. I need something on board. At this moment, on the pirate ship, a group of curious eyes glanced at him. Women, all women, this is a pirate group led by the female Emperor Boya Hancock and composed of all women. Opening his mouth, Qin just wanted to say something, but he heard cheers. Lord Patronus. The dragon of the sea, the king of the sea. Are you really the patron saint of our 9 snakes? A large number of girls are full of curious expressions. Qin subconsciously wanted to deny that he was not interested in being a patron saint, but then he thought that there was something he needed on the pirate ship, and he could get it in the name of the patron saint. Thinking of this, he coughed dryly and quickly assumed the role. Yes, I know, Benlong didn't want to appear at first, but I have a premonition that the world will undergo great changes in the next few years. In the great tide of this era, even the 4 emperors of the New World may be destroyed. 9 Snake Island is very dangerous. He fooled shamelessly. However, upon seeing the crew members of the 9 Snakes pirates, they seemed to believe in this statement, and immediately felt a little guilty, but this sense of guilt was instantly forgotten. And after hearing his words, the Empress was cold-ish. Her eyes swept over viciously, as if giving a warning. In this regard, Qin Chang did not see it. Amanda exclaimed, 9 Snake Island is very dangerous. Lord Patronus, what's going on? Well, Qin opened his mouth, and for a while he didn't seem to be able to think of anything particularly good to say. But, more important than this, was something on the ship. HMPH, pretending to be a ghost. Vivi raised an arc at the corner of the queen's mouth, as if mocking Qin. Seeing this, Rao was Qin thick skin, and he couldn't help but blushed. Fortunately, the dragon's skin is covered with scales, so others cannot see it. You are the current emperor. The Patronus, since it's all right, you can go back and forth from where you came from. The Empress spoke indifferently, deliberately biting on the word Patronus. That won't work, Qin said without thinking. Since it has already appeared, I Benlong, as your patron saint, naturally wants to protect you. The future is far beyond your imagination. It is very dangerous. That's great, with Lord Patronus, it should be fine. Amanda patted her chest with an expression of the rest of her life. Amanda, the Empress glared at her. Sir Empress, please rest assured, Lord Patronus has been protecting us from a long time ago, and this time it will definitely be the same. Amanda, a woman in her 30s, with long black hair in a circle, said this with a pious face. Qin had seen this kind of expression before. Before crossing the road, he once traveled to Dubai and saw this kind of fanatical believer in a square somewhere. Yes, this is the unique piety of fanatics. This guy is very deceiving. Qin snickered twice. It is estimated that now the Empress has the heart to kill. Most of the people on the ship, except the Empress herself, believe it, and a small number are also suspicious. Only the Empress knew that any bullshit patron saint was fake. However, there is no way to say this. The Empress felt a pain in her chest. This kind of passive situation was the first time she encountered it since she became the Emperor. Ah, yes, it's so rude. Suddenly, Amanda said enthusiastically, Lord Patronus, this is not the place to talk, please come back to 9 Snake Island with us. Speaking of which, she looked at the Empress, Lord Hancock. Seeing that the matter had come to this point, the Empress continued to look annoyed on her delicate face. She gritted her teeth and glared at Qin Yang. After a while, she snorted and walked away. HMPH, the concubine is too lazy to care if the guardian does something out of the ordinary. Stepping on red high heels, the Empress quickly walked into the cabin. Qin Yang didn't hear the latter words, but he could guess the meaning. Interesting, it's not quite the character I imagined. I remember that the Empress is a very strong person, and she is so passive now, partly because of her own secrets, but it seems to be more than that. Thinking like this, Qin Yang suddenly came back to his senses, looked at Amanda, and asked, "How many years is it now?" Yes, patron saint, this year is C-Circle calendar 1510. Quote. 1510. Qin Yang was taken aback, and immediately realized it. Monkey D. Luffy went to sea in 1520, and now is 10 years ago, that is to say, the current Empress is only 19 years old. 18-year-old Boya Hancock became the Emperor, and at the age of 19, she was naturally not so strong compared to 10 years later. What? It turned out to be a little girl. After thinking about it, Qin Yang curled his lips. I mean, why does he look so young and immature? Even Akainu looks very young. Shaking his head, he said to Amanda, "Come on, go to 9 Snake Island." Chapter 0005_Gamble with the Empress. 9 Snake Island, also known as Maiden Island. This small island is located somewhere in the windless belt of the ocean, an island that is very mysterious and unknown to the outside world. There are no males on the island, the population is tens of thousands, and all are female fighting ethnic, 9 snakes. Therefore, a country, daughter country, or Amazon Lily, has also been established. Women in this country are born to be bred as warriors. They carry all the household and labor on one shoulder. Even after pregnancy, they only give birth to girls. The characteristic is that they are wrapped around a snake and have the ability to transform into weapons at will. The 9 Snakes Pirates was officially established by the daughter country, a sea raiding force led by the Emperor. When Qin Yang entered the island from the water gate of the ferry with the pirate group, he was immediately surprised by the sight in front of him. The architectural style of the island is full of charm, antique, and has a taste of ancient China. At the landing port, a group of girls in hot clothes stood in a row to welcome the return of their emperor. The Empress took the lead and stepped on the land, followed by a group of crew members carrying various goods. Half of Qin Yang's body was immersed in the sea water, and a huge head searched among the looted goods. He didn't forget his original purpose, and he also thought of an excuse on the way here. Now he is the nominal patron saint. Since he is the patron saint, the daughter country will have to pay tribute anyway. The problem is, it has to be locked first, which box is what it needs. At this moment, Amanda was instructing a group of crew members to carry the cargo. Be careful, this time the harvest should be good. After you get to the shore, remember to count it and report it to me. Yes. After instructing the work, Amanda turned to look at Qin Yang, and said with a look of reverence, "Lord Patronus, it is inconvenient for you to go ashore, I will arrange." Before she could finish her words, Qin Yang immediately shook his head and said, "Who said I can't go ashore?" Huh. She was stunned for a moment, and the next moment, she saw the sea dragon jump up from the water. The dragon body fluttered, circled in the air, and then flew to the land. In the welcoming troops on the shore, all the women stared at each other in surprise. Dragon. Is it a sea king? Enemy attack. Protect Lady Empress. No, it doesn't seem to be malicious. In the chaos, Qin Yang's body shone with white light, and the light shrouded the entire body. After falling to the ground, the halo gradually faded. Everyone narrowed their eyes, only to see a black-haired man walking out. Man is handsome, with a slender figure and short black hair, but the clothes on his body look a bit strange. Gone. No, it was the dragon who became a man. Wow, what the hell is going on? A group of women were shocked. The head of them had a green wavy hair. She seemed calm, and cast her doubtful eyes on the Empress. "Sir, what is this?" Hearing this, the Empress frowned and looked in Qin Yang's direction as well. "Don't be surprised, this is just my human form." Qin Yang grinned and chuckled. "If the Patronus can't even do this, then what kind of god is? What do you say, Empress?" "Humph." The Empress snorted and was too lazy to answer, but at the same time she couldn't help but be puzzled and curious. This sea dragon, could it be that a human ate a devil fruit? Instead of a serpentine sea king eating a devil fruit. Among the devil fruits, there are indeed some mythicals. After eating them, they obtain the form of eudemons, such as the undead phoenix. However, it doesn't make sense, it can't be explained, because the devil fruit ability person can't move freely in the seawater. Strange creatures, in the end, the Empress could only comment in her heart. If it wasn't for the premise that Qin Yang didn't show any malice, as the Emperor and the Master here, she would have already expelled her. Contrary to her, Amanda became more and more fanatical, as expected of the patron saint. "In this case, I will arrange a palace for you. It's your job." Qin Yang accepted it generously, completely assuming the role of the Patronus, which is evident from his thick skin. Seeing his natural appearance, the Empress was very unhappy, but she was helpless and hated her teeth. "Lord Hancock." At this time, Amanda turned her questioning gaze to the Empress. After a little hesitation, Boya Hancock could only nod helplessly. At this point, she had no choice but to agree. For the time being, let this deceitful sea dragon stay there. If there is any malicious intent, she will take care of it by herself. This is the shore, and the Empress believes that there is no problem with dealing with a sea king. Immediately, Qin Yang went to the accommodation under the leadership of Amanda. Along the way, he can be regarded as a good appreciation of the architectural style of the daughter country. The place where I stayed was a palace. Of course, it was only called a palace, but it was actually not big at all, that is, a house in the palace. Moreover, the palace is not big, after all, it is just a small country with a population of tens of thousands. Not bad, it seems that you don't have to worry about eating and drinking for the time being. While looking at his residence, Qin Yang commented in his heart. After a brief look, he turned to look at Amanda and said, "Do you have that what?" "Lord Patronus, what are your orders?" "Ahem, this dragon has changed from a dragon form to a human form. I'm a little weak at the moment. Go and get some tribute," Qin Yang said with a serious face. "Are you hungry? I see." No, tribute." Qin Yang waved his hand. "I think you grabbed a lot of goods this time. Forget it, I'd better tell the Empress directly." That said, he stepped out of the gate. Take Ben Long to see the Empress." Hearing this, Amanda nodded and did as she was told. After some notice, Qin Yang met Boya Hancock in the Empress's bedroom. The girl sat on the soft chuang, with Erlang's legs elegantly crossed, and a pair of delicate eyes stared at him. She was looking at it. Compared with the dragon's majesty in dragon form, Qin Yang's current state is extremely weak, just like an ordinary human being. "What's the matter with your concubine?" she said lightly. The emperor of a small country with a population of tens of thousands, even kicked him. "Uncle, I even shook hands with Banu, chairman of the huge country with a population of 1.3 billion. Qin Yang murmured a few words from the bottom of his heart, but his face was very calm. "It's just a 19-year-old girl, I still don't believe I can't cure you." Thinking in the bottom of his heart, Qin Yang spoke softly and said, "Empress, I have the ability to read people's hearts. You have always suspected that I am a devil fruit person from the beginning of meeting. Since this is the case, I will prove it and come to you once. Bet." Chapter 0006 Second Transformation. The result of the lottery has been released. The winner of the 5 SSR number is *** control, on the 14th floor. You don't have to use the recipe. There is also a 6-star bird plus 2 SSR account. This account is actually better than the previous one. It will be drawn at 12 o'clock tomorrow. If you want it, leave a message. The probability is still quite high, 23,333. Betting. After listening to Qin Yang's speech, the Empress raised her eyebrows and said in a cold tone, "How do you want to bet with your concubine? Sister, don't fall for this guy's trick." The person who spoke was a green wavy woman on the side of the Chuang tent. Qin Yang had already seen this person when he entered the door. It was the younger sister of Empress Boya Hancock, Boya Sandersonia. She stared at Qin Yang slightly hostilely and said, "What purpose do you have, this strange sea dragon?" Saying that, she glanced at the orange-haired woman on the other side of the Chuang tent. She is also the younger sister of the Empress. This woman is named Boya Marigold. She is fat. She is holding Shang in her arms and looking at each other very curiously. "It's really strange. It looks like an ordinary human being, but the main body is actually a sea dragon with a height of more than 20 meters, she whispered. The two of them were not on the boat before, they just heard reports from others and knew that Qin Yang had the ability to control the ocean currents. "Can you show your real body and take a look?" she asked. "That's not good." Qin Yang pondered and glanced at the Empress Shangui. "Although I can't compare with the size of a large sea king, but if I transform, this room can't be squeezed." Hearing this, the Empress raised her hand to stop the two younger sisters and said softly, "Continue what you just said. How do you want to prove that you are not a fruit person?" "It's simple." Qin Yang took issue indifferently and faced the Empress's gaze calmly. "Although this girl is indeed very beautiful, for a person like him who has experienced the influence of the Earth Age, he will not be easily fascinated by the beauty of a woman. You should also know very well that the most effective way to distinguish a person with fruit ability is to throw it into the sea. A person with fruit ability cannot swim for a lifetime. This is the price of gaining power." After listening, the Queen's eyes twitched. This kind of common sense does not need Qin Yang to popularize at all. However, she also knew that these words were just foreshadowing, so she also endured a few nonsense. "However, as you can see, I am a sea dragon, let alone fear the sea. In the sea, I am a duck to water." Qin Yang spread his hands and said with a chuckle, "So, this method of distinguishing won't work. Therefore, another method has to be used. Say the point. Don't be in such a hurry, little girl, you can't be an emperor like this." Qin Yang shook his head and commented on the Empress. Little girl." The Empress widened her eyes, her brows were full of anger. Since she became the emperor, this guy in front of her was the first person who dared to talk to her like this. "Look, just a few words will make you angry. No, there must be a city government." Qin Yang clicked his tongue, and said with a serious tone, "It must be done so that Mount Tai collapses in front of the eyes without changing its color." The Empress was so angry that her mouth fluctuated. Sister, calm down, calm down. This guy is still holding the title of patron saint, he can't fight in such a place." Marigold smiled wryly to reassure, then glared at Qin Yang again. "You guy, if what a mess, and I'll make you look good." "That's really disrespectful." Qin Yang, calmly apologized. But in the bottom of his heart, he couldn't help but secretly laugh and tease the other party casually, and the Empress's reaction was as he expected. The three sisters all share a common secret. As long as the bottom line is not touched, they have to admit that they are patron saints, for the time being. Humph. With a cold snort, it took a while for the Empress to calm down. With her beautiful eyes hidden in anger, she stared at Qin Yang without saying a word. "You continue to say, don't play tricks." On the side, the second sister Sandersonia said dissatisfiedly, "If you let us know that you are a devil fruit person, but disguised as the patron saint of our 9 snakes, I will definitely teach you a good lesson." Quote. Hearing this, Qin Yang Vivi Isho said, "Well, continue the topic just now." After a pause, he organized the language before saying, "In addition to being afraid of seawater, those who are capable have another obvious characteristic. Do you know what? Don't give a shit. A capable person can only eat one devil fruit. If he eats the second one, he will explode and die." Yang raised his eyebrows and looked at the three of them. You should know this, right? Of course, the legend is that two demons will be born in the body and fight each other, causing people to explode to death. Marigold nodded. That's easy, you take out a devil fruit, and I eat it in front of you. Xiaoyi's eyes flashed and he said with certainty, if I explode and die, it means that I am a capable person. I deceived you, Nine Snake Island, and you don't need to do anything, I will die myself. What did you say? The two younger sisters were taken aback. Is this guy a gamble? There was even a hint of surprise in the eyes of the Empress. This sea buckthorn is really big. Wait, suddenly, the Empress frowned and said, if you eat it, you won't be able to swim. You're a dragon of the ocean and can't swim. Are you sure you want to do this? Hearing this, Yang Vivi was startled and looked at the Empress with a little surprise. Unexpectedly, this girl looks cold on the outside, but also has a kindness inside. Don't worry, I'm a god. Devil fruit is the power of the devil. Even if I eat it, I won't become an able one. Yang said in a low voice, feeling a little sorry for the three sisters. Hearing this, the two younger sisters turned their inquiring eyes towards the Empress. Taking a deep look at Yang, the Empress nodded silently. Then, according to what you said, I hope you are not cheating. If you will explode and die, I will have someone feed Ba with your minced meat. Chula, it is a ferocious black panther raised by our emperors from generation to generation, and he must like the meat of sea dragons very much. Quote. At the end, there was a slight smile on the corner of her mouth. Marigold, among the loot you brought back this time, there is just a devil fruit. You go get someone to bring it. Yes, my elder sister. Soon, a devil fruit in a box was placed in front of Yang's eyes. Seeing the weird spiral pattern on the surface of the fruit, Yang couldn't help being a little speechless. This group of prodigal women, this thing is worth at least 100 million Bailey, and it was used as a bet. Yes, this is a gamble. Yang gambled on his life, and the Empress gambled on a fruit. Of course, it was just that others seemed to gamble his life. The reason why Yang determined that the ship was a devil fruit, not other mysterious powers, was because, in the world of pirates, only the devil fruit was more suitable, at least the probability was very, very high. I've already given you the stuff. The Empress returned to her usual arrogant attitude. The concubine just watched you eat it, but it's useless to hide your eyes. Thanks for the hospitality. Yang pondered Isho, and immediately raised his hand without hesitation. When the bitter and unpalatable taste of the fruit attacked the taste buds, deep in my mind, the emotionless voice of Fantasy Jean rang out. Perceive the mysterious power. Turn on the absorption mode, absorbing 1%, 50%, 100%, the absorption is complete. Congratulations to the host, opening the second transformation Shadow Demon. Chapter 0007 _ Hex Sengoku and Akainu. Turn on the absorption mode, the absorption is complete. Congratulations to the host, opening the second transformation, Shadow Demon. The voice of Fantasy Jean in his mind seemed cold and without emotional fluctuations. Yang stopped eating the devil fruit and closed his eyes to feel the changes in his body. However, after waiting for 3 or 5 minutes, he didn't feel anything wrong, and his body didn't seem to have any changes. What's the situation? I couldn't help asking. Shadow Demon is a relatively special form and can only be active at night. Fantasy Jean said. Currently the host is already in the period of forced transformation, which will last for 7 days. During this time, other transformation forms cannot be used. Why didn't you say earlier? Yang opened his mouth, suddenly a little helpless. He couldn't use the sea dragon to transform, and the Shadow Demon's transformation could only be used at night, which means that in the next week, he would be a proper ordinary person during the day. Fortunately, this is 9 Snake Island, and there is no danger. It seems that I can only consider leaving after passing the forced transformation period here. Now that he has come to the world of pirates, of course he wants to go for a walk, the premise is safety. Thinking of this, he slowly opened his eyes, only to see 6 eyes staring at him firmly. Qin Yang took the 3 sisters' concerns calmly, opened his mouth and continued to chew on the very unpalatable fruit in his hands. In a short time, the whole devil fruit has been eaten clean, leaving only the peel on the ground. It doesn't taste good. Hearing Qin Yang's sigh, the 3 sisters immediately looked at each other. Marigold said in surprise, "Sir, it seems that he is really not a capable person. He has nothing at all." The other side, Sandersonia frowned and asked, "How do you feel now? Have you become an ability person?" I said, "I'm a god. Devil fruit is useless to me. I won't turn into a landlubber if I eat it, and I won't explode to death." Qin Yang chuckled and said, "Do you believe it now, Empress?" Seeing this, Boya Hancock gave him a headache and looked tired again. He pursed his lips and said softly, "My concubine is tired. Marigold, you send the patron saint away." "Yes." Immediately, Qin Yang left the Empress's boudoir under the respectful escort of the 3rd sister. As soon as the 2 of them went out, Sandersonia couldn't help but ask, "Sir, is it really a patron saint? It's already certain that it's not a capable person." The Empress waved her hand and rubbed her temple with the other hand, both confused and helpless. She doesn't believe in the legend of the patron saint, but since things have come to this point, she can only agree with Qin Yang's identity for the time being. Having a sea dragon to protect 9 Snake Island can bring good results to national security. Thinking of this, she said in a soft voice, "Let's entertain you. Just think of raising an extra, Bachula." Bachula, a large and ferocious black panther, is a beast of execution specially used by the daughter country to execute criminals. Meanwhile, on the other side, Qin Yang followed Marigold back to his residence. While leading the way, Marigold couldn't help but turn his head and glance at Qin Yang. "Are you really a patron saint? This legend, I often heard it when I was a child, always thought it was a legend. Is it not up to me, but up to you?" Qin Yang Vivi Isho, a somewhat philosophical speech. "If you think it is, then I am God, probably that's what it is." Similar to the feeling of reciprocating, the truth is not very important. He just slapped the Empress with a devil fruit, and he was really embarrassed. After a pause, he said again, "I Benlong has a name and a surname, you can just call me Qin Yang, or Qin." Qin, Marigold chewed for a moment, then nodded. "Strange names, are God's names like this? Well, I'll tell my elder sister." While talking, the 2 came to the residence. "Master Qin, if you have anything, you can ask the maid." Leaving a sentence, Marigold turned and left. After finally achieving his goal, Qin Yang couldn't help but relax a little. He sat down at the table, poured himself a cup of tea, and slowly sipped the tea. "They come, the security. The pirate world is so big, he wants to look everywhere. It is impossible to hide on the 9 Snake Island all the time. Besides, I have to collect the mysterious power, which is the devil fruit, and stay on Maiden Island all the time. It is safe to be safe, but the Queen will not be stupid enough to give him a second fruit. Before that, we have to find out what the shadow demon is." Time flies, and soon it will be night. When the sun went down from the sea level, Qin Yang, who had been staying in the room, immediately noticed the changes in his body. At first, a wisp of black smoke overflowed from his chest, and soon, all limbs and bones began to blur. In just a few breaths before and after, Qin Yang's human body disappeared, replaced by a black phantom made of black smoke. "This is the shadow demon," Qin Yang said to himself in surprise. He could feel that he was virtual and had no entity, and the whole person was erratic, as if he was immune to all physical contact. Strange form, what ability does this transformation have? Gently closing his eyes, Qin Yang let go of his mind and felt everything. In the darkness, there are countless shining star points, densely packed and countless. Some of the stars are bright, some are dim, some seem to go out at any time, and some are dazzling like lights. With curiosity, Qin approached a very bright star. After he approached, an inexplicable suction suddenly appeared, and the next moment, the world was spinning. When the dizziness disappeared, Qin opened his eyes, but what he saw was not the residence of the daughter country, but an office. There was only one person sitting in the office. Qin is behind this person, to be precise, in the shadow of this person. Justice. The next moment, Qin expression was weird. He could see the coat on the person sitting. Is it Marine? He came to such a place in an instant. As if feeling something, the person sitting up frowned and suddenly turned around. Strange, I always feel that some breath is spying on me, damn it. He had a national character face, and whispered to himself at this moment. Marshal Marine, Sengoku. Qin was taken aback. He can't see me. This is Marine headquarters. Before he could think about it, there was a knock on the door of the office, followed by a familiar face. Akainu. Sengoku looked at the person who came, and asked in a deep voice, how did you resolve the Shichibukai matter? There was a small problem. There was a sea dragon who was suspected of being able to make trouble. Akainu's voice was low, and suddenly his eyes flashed, looking behind Sengoku. What the hell? Chapter 0008 _ Shadow Demon. The number of the 6-star bird. The winner, Bragging Ruti, congratulations. Both of them have already been sent out. Brothers who didn't get them don't want to give up. For a game like on my OG, you should abandon the pit as soon as possible, and go out for a walk, and you will find that the world it is still interesting to play games 233,333. By the way, solemnly ask for collections, flowers, and rewards. Close black lens bracket. What the hell? Akainu looked behind Sengoku, his sharp gaze, revealing an oppressive force. Huh. Seeing this, Sengoku frowned and followed his gaze. What's so strange? What? Akainu was taken aback and said, what is this ghost? You are dazzled, Sengoku said angrily. Has the pressure been too much lately? No. Akainu opened his mouth, feeling incredible. He looked behind Sengoku carefully and was sure that he had no dizziness. It was indeed a faint black mist. At this moment, the group of black shadows scratched their heads very humanely. This ability is a bit interesting. Qin regarded the two of them as nothing. Sengoku can't see me, but Akainu can. In other words, the character selected by this ability can't see himself, and the rest can. So, the bright star point from before represents Sengoku. What about the rest of the star points? Seriously terrified. If each star point represents a person, then there are hundreds of millions of star points seen before. If this premise is correct, that is to say, the ability of the shadow demon can instantly appear behind anyone in the world. The specifics, we have to continue the test. Qin thought about it, and said secretly, I seem to be able to return to 9 Snake Island in an instant, but before that, I will try the other abilities of the shadow demon. Thinking like this, Qin suddenly floated up and gradually transformed into a human form in midair. What? Seeing this scene, Akainu's eyes widened, and then he saw that illusory shadow sitting on the desk of the marshal, with Erlang's legs crossed carelessly, as if staring at him. Rao is Akainu's strength, and he was also horrified by this strange scene. What are you doing? What a fuss! Marshal Sengoku looked at Akainu dissatisfied, and said solemnly, report the mission first. What happened to the sea dragon you just said? Yes. Temporarily holding back the surprise in his heart, Akainu began to report on the mission overview. According to the information, I led the warship to intercept the returning ship of the 9 Snake Pirates, but when I invited the Empress Boya Hancock, a mysterious sea dragon appeared from the bottom of the sea. It has the ability to control the ocean currents, and the people of 9 Snake Island called it for the patron saint. Reporting the mission, Akainu's eyes couldn't help but glance at the shadow on the table, and his face became more and more difficult to look at. At first, the shadow was just sitting on the desk, but soon, this weird thing actually gave him the middle finger. Although I couldn't see Sombra's expression, Akainu had a subtle feeling of being despised. Suddenly, the shadow jumped off the table. He took off his shoes and put them under Sengoku's nostrils, as if he wanted him to smell his feet. That sea dragon blocked. Seeing this scene, Akainu finally couldn't help shouting loudly, and even threw aside the task of reporting, presumptuous. With a loud shout, not only Chin-young was startled, but even Sengoku, who had been listening carefully, was startled by him. "What did you say?" No, I'm about that shadow," Akainu explained. "What dark shadow?" Sengoku's face sank, and his eyes swept away without a trace. "Where is the dark shadow? Are you too tired recently and need to let you go on vacation?" No. Akainu opened his mouth and swallowed the extra words. He had a feeling of unspeakable suffering, and even wondered if he really had hallucinations. But at this moment, the shadow moved. He suddenly threw the shoe over and kicked Akainu's mouth with a kick. "You are courting death." Akainu couldn't bear it anymore and shot in anger. He threw a punch, and the fist was hunting, and he was majestic. In his rage, he didn't mean to keep his hands at all, and he made up his mind to solve this weird thing with one punch. However, the shadow was not in a hurry and let the punch hit him. But before Akainu was happy, at that moment, he was shocked to find that his fist passed through the shadow and slammed into the desk. Boom! With a loud bang, the entire desk was suddenly torn apart and shattered into a mess. Presumptuous. Sengoku was furious, stood up abruptly, and stared at Akainu angrily. "Akainu, what the hell are you trying to do?" Akainu was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, the black shadow that was punched through by a punch walked calmly in front of him. Akainu tensed his muscles subconsciously and was extremely alert. But the next moment, the other party raised his middle finger, almost touching his face, expressing his contempt mercilessly. Damn it! Akainu's forehead burst with blue veins, and he was furious. He became an admiral for a short time. He also represented Marine's peak combat power and was a symbol of majesty. As a result, he was provoked by a sea dragon during the day, and at night he encountered this strange shadow that ignored physical attacks, which made him furious. However, before he could get angry, a team of Marines rushed in outside. "Marshal Sengoku. What happened?" "Akainu Admiral." A group of sailors peered at the messy office. Seeing this, Akainu spoke first and said, "You guys came just in time, there is a black mass in the office." As he spoke, he pointed to the location of the shadow before, but the words stopped abruptly. "There is no shadow there, only the desk that was smashed by him." "Black what?" the sailor asked cautiously. "What are you talking about, Akainu Admiral?" "Nothing." Akainu's face was ashen, and he was speechless. "Humph." Sengoku snorted and said, "You've been too tired recently. Go back and rest for a week. You don't need to worry about Shichibukai for the time being." Akainu became more and more uncomfortable, gritted his teeth and nodded, "Yes." A slight dizziness. When he opened his eyes again, Chin-young had already returned to 9 Snake Island. He first confirmed that there was no one in the room, and then said to himself, "It seems that he can really ignore physical attacks. Not only that, but he doesn't even have a smell. Such a powerful ability." Thinking of this, Chin-young was happy. According to the information obtained now, it is not enough to confirm everything. Continue the experiment. Chapter 0009_Awesome Pirates. Keep experimenting. Chin-young thought to himself. Sneaking silently into anyone's shadow is indeed very powerful, but the combat effectiveness is still unclear. Shadow monsters are incorporeal in their natural state, ignoring any physical attacks, and at the same time have the ability to instantly move into the shadow behind anyone's back. If they have a certain level of combat power, they can be said to be the strongest assassin in the world. The problem is, he is an illusory body, and others can't attack him. How can he attack others? Find someone to try. Thinking so, Chin-young closed his eyes again. The next moment, he saw countless star spots, bright and dark, endless, like the starry sky at night. Entering this strange state again, Qinyong immediately noticed the difference. Among the stars, the star representing Sengoku has a certain connection with him. After locking it once, you can tell it apart. Qinyong thought in surprise. Not bad, the shadow demon has the ability to recognize the way. This means that he can appear behind Sengoku whenever he wants. However, as a candidate for experimental combat power, Sengoku is a bit too strong to be suitable. Sengoku, the current Marshal of Marine, was previously promoted from the position of Admiral, and his strength is at the top level in the world, even more than the current Akainu. For another one, preferably a weaker one. Thinking like this, Qinyong locked onto one of the endless stars, brought his thoughts closer, and then, the feeling of dizziness came again. When he opened his eyes, he had already appeared somewhere in the world. Here is. Qinyong was not in a hurry to reveal it, he was hidden in the shadows. In this state, unless there is a third person staring at it and observing it carefully, it is difficult to find his existence. Glancing around, Qinyong quickly discovered that this was a tavern. The tavern seemed very lively, the men's vulgar voices kept ringing in the ears. Behind the bar, the owner was wiping the crystal glass, and the young waiter was busy serving the customers. The tavern is not big, that is, 5 or 6 tables. Except for the one near the corner, where one person sits alone, the rest of the seats are filled with men facing vicious. Let me tell you, that little girl was so powerful just now that I wanted to snatch her away. Don't be stupid, this is the Sabayati archipelago, there are pirates everywhere, if you do it, if you mess with anyone, you will be in trouble. I said, Captain, the new world is ahead, where the 4 emperors divide the world and fight each other fiercely. Which one should we join? Hearing this, Qinyong's heart moved. Sabayati archipelago. Of course Qinyong knew about this place. Most of this world is the ocean, except for the red earth continent that surrounds the planet, there are only small islands in the rest of the world. And a great route just crosses the red soil continent. The second half of this route is the New World. The Sabayati archipelago is the end island of the first half of the route and the entrance to the New World in the second half. This group of people are pirates, and they are pirates who have just finished the first half. Qinyong snorted, just right, it is very suitable as the object of experimental combat power. The first half of the Great Route and the New World were 2 types of sea areas. The pirates in the New World were very powerful, and any of the 4 emperors far surpassed the admiral-level combat power of Akainu. In the first half, the pirates in it are relatively common. Unless they are the top group, the rest of the pirates generally don't have a bounty of more than 100 million. Sure enough, the next moment I heard the captain of this pirate group speak. The captain was a bald man with a burly stature with a machete at his feet. Probably drinking too much, the bald head stood up, haha Isho, and said, join the 4 emperors. Just kidding, Lao Tzu's bounty is 75 million, and sooner or later he will become One Piece, king of pirates. Entering the New World, the first thing, just kill the 4 emperors Whitebeard. This speech immediately made all the crew members excited and shouted. Kill Whitebeard. Unable to hold back for a while, Qinyong burst out laughing. Who? The bald head drank loudly, and woke up a little drunk. It's quite alert. Since it has been discovered, Qinyong has not continued to hide. I saw a black shadow slowly walking out from behind the bald man. Ghost. Many people were startled. Monster. What? A group of pirates face a formidable enemy. However, the bald captain was dumbfounded. He followed his subordinate's gaze, but couldn't see anything at all. Don't look for it, you can't see me. Qinyong grinned and looked at the other party up and down. You still want to kill Whitebeard at your level. It's only 75 million, and a trainee crew member on the ship has a reward of 80 million. Quote. The voice that appeared out of thin air again startled the bald man. He could hear the sound and perceive the source of the sound, but there was nothing there. Pretend to be a ghost. At the same time as his heart was chilling, the bald man was wicked, and suddenly grabbed the machete beside him and slashed it in Qin Yang's direction. Facing this blow, Qin Yang did not dodge or evade, letting the big sword fall. Seeing this, the rest of the crew sneered, "This bastard is frightened, kill him." However, in the next second, everyone's expressions froze. I saw the machete cut through Qin Yang's body, as if slashing through the smoke. "Logia," someone blurted out, shocked. "This is the guy who persuaded his companions just now not to cause trouble." Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and looked at the man unexpectedly. "You know Logia, you are quite knowledgeable." "Who are you?" the man asked a little nervously. Qin Yang smiled and was too lazy to answer. Instead, he looked at the bald captain. "You attacked me, and it makes sense for me to take action against you now. Just give it a try and see if it can materialize." Having said that, Qin Yang tried to control his body and let it condense. Hearing this voice, the bald man backed away subconsciously, and even knocked over the dining table. He widened his eyes, staring at the scene in front of him in disbelief. I saw a dark shadow slowly appear in front of me. The black shadow was thick enough to drip out ink, starting from the head, appearing little by little, and finally forming a human shape. Not only that, this black shadow has no face, only a pair of eyes, and it looks extremely strange in the darkness. What's more, the entire body of the shadow has been continuously overflowing with black smoke, adding a bit of mystery. Is this the feeling of materialization? Qin Yang looked at his hands and was very surprised. However, it doesn't seem to last long. Thinking so, he looked up at the bald captain who had been stunned. Suddenly, he moved. He raised his right hand, clenched his palm into a fist, and when he moved, black smoke billowed. Eat my punch. Chapter 0010 I'm just running errands. Eat my punch. Qin Yang doesn't have much experience in hand-to-hand combat, and just follows his instinct to punch and attack. However, for the frightened bald captain, he didn't even have time to dodge this punch. This strange thing seems to have a kind of great terror. The bald man's pupils shrank, and he took the blow with his rough face. Boom! With one punch, his face was deformed, and the whole person was directly beaten to the door of the tavern. "Captain!" exclaimed the crew. "The strength is also sloppy." Qin Yang succeeded in one strike, but stopped chasing after the victory. It must be far more than ordinary people, but... Just thinking of this, suddenly, a sword light flashed, and a pirate stabbed him in the mouth. "Go to hell, monster." The sneak attack was very proud, and the corners of his mouth were full of ridicule. However, the ridicule disappeared immediately, replaced by horror. Puff! As if through a rag, the attacker pierced Qin Yang's chest with a sword. However, under this sword, there was neither blood nor any harm to Qin Yang. The blade pierced through the shadow demon's body, but the sneak attacker didn't feel like he had slashed the real body. It really is Logia's ability. The man was so frightened that he even dropped the sword in his hand. He moved his footsteps and stepped back quickly, trying to open a safe distance. Qin Yang pondered Isho, and easily snatched the sword away. At this moment, the bald captain who was knocked away by his punch had stood up, looking at each other in shock and anger. "Who are you? Why do you want to be my enemy?" He implied a little bit of fear, a little stern. "We are the Tomahawk Pirates, sign up." Hearing this, Qin Yang swung the sword in his hand to himself, and said after a while, "Aren't you going to kill Whitebeard? I'll try to see how much courage you have." The bald-headed captain looked ugly. He had been drinking heavily before, so he just bragged about it. How could he get involved with such a person? However, in front of the younger brother, he couldn't show his timidity, and said viciously, "Don't think that you can be safe if you are Logia. Since you have provoked our Tomahawk Pirates, don't try to get out of this door without an explanation. Stop talking nonsense, I'm just looking for your fight." Curling his lips, Qin Yang ignored the threat of the other party and stabbed his sword out like lightning. The sword light flickered, and a little star pierced the center of the bald head and eyebrows. Seeing this, the bald captain became angry and shouted, "Okay, since you are courting death." Immediately, instead of retreating, he advanced, and greeted him with a machete in hand. Clang! After a harsh sound, the sword in Qin Yang's hand snapped. Ah, what a rubbish sword! The blade was cut off with a knife. Qin Yang was speechless for a long time, glanced at the sword master, but saw a painful expression on his face. Ha ha ha, Lao Su's knife is made of fine steel. The bald captain was unforgiving, laughed wildly, and slashed the top of the shadow demon's head with a knife from top to bottom. With a stab, the shadow demon was split in two and turned into two thick smoke, but before the pirates could breathe a sigh of relief, the two black smoke gathered back again and recondensed into a human form. Damn Logia! The bald man's face was ashen, but his left hand touched the back of his waist without a trace. Until now, all the pirates thought that Qin Yang was some kind of Logia fruit person. Only Logia has fluid, which means that it is like flowing water. Logia, Qin Yang said with a chuckle, if you think so, then treat it as such. Pause, he whispered to himself. Ordinary swords are not suitable, it seems that you have to condense a weapon yourself. While speaking, Qin Yang raised his hand, and suddenly endless black smoke condensed into his palm. After a short while, a pitch-black blade appeared in his hand. Now he has basically figured out the two abilities of the shadow demon. The first is to instantly travel across endless distances, and the second is to manipulate shadows, such as materialization and condensing swords, which are all manifestations of this ability. After having the Sword of Shadow, Qin Yang made another move without saying a word. He has no experience in playing swords, but he has never eaten pork or seen a pig run. The black sword stabbed out, but the bald man's expression changed. Unstoppable. This guy is immune to my attacks. It's a injury for injury style of play. This injury, for the bald man, will naturally bleed, but for Qin Yang, it is not an injury. Thinking of this, the bald man chose to dodge. After all, he was a pirate of 75 million. He was determined to dodge. Qin Yang's sword was really hard to stab him. Tisk tisk, don't hide, come and hit me. A sword fell, Qin Yang sneered, and another sword swept across. Seeing this, the bald man froze all over, and secretly said, this guy doesn't look like a swordsman. His sword moves are very unprofessional, but his attack angle is very tricky. With a twist of his thick waist, he dodged again. Boring, I'm tired of playing. Suddenly, Qin Yang stopped and his eyes were cold. But before the bald captain could breathe a sigh of relief, he saw the other side suddenly throw the black sword out of his hand. Whoosh! With a flash of black light, the speed of the sword was so fast that the afterimage could be glimpsed, and in the flash of lightning, the bald captain lost his capture of the sword. See. When his left foot hurt, the bald man looked down and saw that the black sword penetrated the sole of his foot and pinned him to the floor. Ah! The screams sounded, and the bald man was suddenly dripping with cold sweat. I just want to try playing with the sword, otherwise there are ways to kill you, but you keep hiding, which makes it difficult for me. You want to kill me, but don't let me hide, what's the point? The bald man hates it, this guy is simply unreasonable. But, forget it, your 75 million reward is because you have done too many evil things to be wanted. I advise you, don't go to the new world to find death. At your level, in that place, you can barely be cannon fodder. The bald man was silent, and the pirates beside him were also shocked and didn't dare to make trouble. Qin Yang was too lazy to entangle with this group of people, glanced at the old man who had been drinking in the corner, stretched out his hand and waved. The whole person began to slowly disappear. Goodbye, I'll have a chance to play with you again later. Seeing his body fade, the bald man's eyes flashed. He endured the pain and shouted, who are you? Sign up, I will remember this hatred. Me. Qin Yang asked about this, and after thinking for a while, he smiled and said, my name is Shadow Demon, the Dream Pirates. If you want revenge, you can come to me at any time. Dreamy, like a dream, like a fantasy, without the beginning and the end. Qinyang decided that all future transformations can appear in front of the world in the name of dream. Dream, the bald man chewed on these two words. Shenlong sees the beginning but not the end, it is indeed a dream. Well, I remember you, Ying Yao, you are the cadre of the dream, sooner or later, I will report a sword with my own hands. Vengeance. Ha ha ha, I just ran errands and wanted to find our cadres, at least send admiral-level masters here. Qinyang laughed and suddenly looked at the corner with deep meaning. Old man, I'll come to play with you next time. Play, fell, Qinyang's figure completely disappeared without a trace. But after hearing his words, the bald man turned pale in horror and said, impossible. A powerful Logia person is just running errands. What is this dream, pirates? He trembled all over, feeling as if he had provoked something huge. In the corner, the old man who had been drinking silently had a subtle expression on his face. Recognize me. By the way, the dream pirates never heard of it. Where did it come from? Chapter 0011 Advanced Fighting Technique. The dizziness gradually disappeared, and when Qinyang opened his eyes again, he returned to Nine Snake Island again. 2 consecutive successes made his heart agitate for a while. This ability is very cool, you can go to all parts of the world in an instant without leaving home. The distance between Nine Snake Island and Sabayati Archipelago is at least 4 or 5 days' voyage. The old man in the tavern just now very familiar, he should be a plot character. Qinyang thought about it, and then said to himself with great conviction, is it Shilba's Rayleigh? There is a scar on the right eye across the upper and lower eyelids, round glasses on the bridge of the nose, and most of the white hair. At that time, he had been sitting in the corner of the tavern drinking. No matter what happened around him, it seemed that it would not affect the other party. Interesting, I was able to meet Pluto, Rayleigh, the deputy captain of One Piece, King of Pirates. Even if he has retired, at least his strength is at least admiral level. 12 years ago, One Piece King of Pirates Gul D. Roger led the Roger Pirates and completed the entire journey of the Great Route. At the time of being executed by Marine, One Piece King of Pirates left a famous quote, thus ushering in the era of the Great Pirates. And the 4 emperors of pirates, who now dominate the New World, were nothing but losers in the Roger era. Seeing that the deputy captain of the One Piece King of Pirates is an amazing identity. However, no matter how amazing Rayleigh's identity is, it can't affect Qinyang. He is not Aboriginal. It seems that the first stop after leaving Nine Snake Island, you can go to Sabayati for a turn. Just as he was thinking, footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. Qinyang's thoughts moved, and he immediately merged his figure into the darkness. He is now in the forced transformation period, and it is not suitable to expose. Tuck tuck tuck. After the knock on the door, a female voice rang out. Lord Patronus, it's time for dinner. Lady Empress asked me to bring you a meal. I see, let's put it out the door. Qinyang pondered for a moment, and had no choice but to answer. After waiting for the others to leave, Qinyang was careful about the gate of opening, using the Shadow Demon's ability to manipulate the black smoke, and brought in the dinner. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed in a flash. During these 3 days, Qinyang basically stayed in the palace. During the day, he strolled in the courtyard. At night, he hid in the house and never saw anyone. Fortunately, his status is high enough, and no one will disturb him. Thanks to this, Qinyang used this time to understand the power of the Shadow Demon. Compared with the Sea Dragon, this transformation is definitely not as good in terms of combat power, but it is weird, it can travel hundreds of millions of miles, and it is immune to physical attacks, which is very safe. In terms of positioning, it is more like an intelligence master, an assassin, an errand runner and the like. However, this leisurely life was finally broken on the 4th day. The Queen wants to see him. Under the leadership of Amanda, Qinyang came to the Queen's boudoir again. Compared with the last time, More people met this time. In addition to the 3 Boya sisters, there were also many officials, all of whom were women. There is only one figure that is more eye-catching, that very short little old woman. She was 50 or 60 years old, with a small red flower on her head and a snake-coiled cane in her hand. When she saw Qin Yang entering the door, her eyes widened immediately. Isn't this a man? She looked Qin Yang up and down, then looked at the soft Chuang suddenly. Shiji, have you even forgotten Jinji of the daughter country? Mother-in-law. Amanda smiled bitterly and said, this is the patron saint, Qin. The patron saint, does our country have such a thing? Granny Za shook her head. Long-winded. Someone, throw her out. The Empress snorted coldly and gave the order without hesitation. Immediately after receiving the order, 2 female warriors walked in, helped Granny Za helplessly, and forcibly took her away. Qin Yang watched this scene amusingly, and his mother-in-law's shout came from his ears, Snake Princess. You ungrateful bitch. The voice faded away, and finally became completely silent. Seeing this, Qin Yang spoke calmly and said, Empress, you are looking for me. What are you looking for, Benlong? HMPH, said a soft hum at first to express dissatisfaction, and then the Empress said coldly, Heilong, you have been eating and drinking in your concubine's palace for free these few days. Before she could finish her words, Qin Yang interrupted and said, I am the patron saint. That's not free to eat and drink, it's a tribute given by you. My concubine doesn't want to raise a waste dragon. Vivi raised the corner of the queen's mouth and looked at Qin Yang with a playful gaze. Since you are the patron saint, you will perform the duty of the patron saint. From today, you will come to train the island. The protector of the country. Huh. Qin Yang was stunned, and immediately reacted after seeing the Empress' expression. This little girl actually set him up. Want me to be an instructor? Now the outside world thinks I'm a patron saint. That's because of the sense of mystery. After more contact, it won't be so mysterious. Sooner or later, it will be revealed. It's a good calculation. Qin Yang pouted and commented in his heart, little clever. How? Seeing his thoughtful expression, the Empress asked calmly, neither in a hurry nor in a rush. Okay, training protector of the country, right? No problem, it's a piece of cake for Benlong. Qin Yang waved his hand and immediately agreed. In the afternoon, Qin Yang saw a group of soldiers protecting the country. The meaning of protecting the country is a force that defends the country of the daughter. However, the serving national defenders have things to do, and what he really trains is the reservists, a group of little girls aged 6, 7, 8, and 9. Looking at more than a dozen innocent faces, Qin Yang shook his head helplessly. It seems that I think too much. Let me just say that the Empress's Shang is so big, if the IQ is higher, it would be too unfair. It seems that she just wants to find something for me. Just thinking about it, one of the little loli opened her mouth and said, Lord Patronus, is it the Empress who asked you to teach us? What do you want to teach us? Teach you to read Maozan, how to create a female emperor's rebel from scratch, how about this? Qin Yang said jokingly. A group of little loli blinked. Okay, let's learn advanced fighting techniques today. Qin Yang put away his smile and said seriously, you must know that only a strong body can defend the country. And the fighting technique is a must. Okay, Lord Patronus, what is the advanced fighting technique? A little loli asked happily. Well, the name of the advanced fighting technique is the third set of radio gymnastics. Come on, do the moves with me. Not far away, the Empress' face turned blue and white, and she grabbed a big tree beside her with one hand, and she grabbed it abruptly. Female, Lady Empress. Amanda spoke cautiously from the side, and couldn't help but feel worried for Qin Yang. Chapter 0012_Phantom Assassin. The Queen is very angry. If it wasn't for Qin Yang's title of Patron Saint, she could not help but kill each other 100 times. In line with the principle of not letting others eat and drink for nothing, he arranged a little task for Heilong, but they agreed readily, but the actual action was quite perfunctory. That also called the fighting technique. Bullying the little girl is ignorant. The Empress thought that it was just aerobics. This bastard sea dragon actually uses aerobics to perfunctory the future protector of the country. Lian lacked the mood to continue observing, and the Empress returned to the palace full of anger. Remove, calm down, elder sister, don't be as knowledgeable as Lord Qin. Marigold comforted helplessly. Master Qin, the Empress frowned, her eyes sharp. Ah, no, it's the bastard sea dragon. That bastard dares to provoke Mrs. Sister, it's damned. Marigold quickly changed his tune and cursed along with him. Killing will not work. The Empress bit her lower lip, wondering how to punish her. However, before she could think about it, a short figure walked in. Empress couldn't help frowning, and Nice said in a cold voice, "You go in and out of the concubine's room at will. Don't forget, you are no longer the Emperor, the Gloriosa of the previous generation." Gloriosa? No, the mother-in-law didn't feel angry when she heard this. She just put on a serious face and looked at the Empress seriously. Snake Princess, now is not the time to play with that sea dragon. You rejected Marine's Shichibukai title a few days ago, and sooner or later they will come over with warships again. At that time, instead of negotiating, we will bombard 9 Snake Island. Mother-in-law took a deep breath. It's still too late. Accept the title. The windless belt can no longer protect the daughter's country, only the title of Shichibukai can do it. I don't want a concubine. The Empress was distraught when she heard it, and there was a little anxiety in her emotions, and her tone was even more indifferent. It's not up to you to tell me what to do with my concubine. Get out. As she said that, she shook her head again and again, and there was a hint of sadness between her brows. The concubine is a pirate, they are marine, they are naturally enemies, and there is no possibility of cooperation. Except their canonization. Become a marine, become a lackey of the world government. The concubine is not willing to die. Seeing that her emotions were a little out of control, her mother-in-law's complexion changed slightly, and she sighed. I'm sorry to remind you of the past. Think about it carefully, Sheji. The future of the country is not something you can do willfully. Quote. After speaking, the mother-in-law shook her head and sighed, then resigned helplessly. The person left, but the Empress huddled on top of the soft chuang, as if remembering something terrifying. Her face kept flashing fear and panic. At this moment, she is not the arrogant and cruel 9 Snake Empress, but a weak and helpless 19-year-old girl. Sister. My concubine is fine. After a while, the Empress regained a little calm, announced to the whole city that my concubine needs to bathe and change. Qinyang taught radio gymnastics all afternoon, but these little lowly learned quickly, and they learned 7, 8 in 3 or 5 hours. Okay, let's get here first today, let's disband. After waving goodbye to the lowly, Qinyang returned to the palace with a smile. However, when he wanted to enter the city, he was blocked. Not only him, but everyone in the city, except for the necessary garrison, was temporarily driven out of the city. I'm sorry, Lord Patronus, Lady Empress is bathing and changing clothes. Because of Gorgon's curse, it is very dangerous to approach now. The protector of the country, who was responsible for guarding the city gate, explained it respectfully. Gorgon's curse. Legend has it that the Empress has an eye of Gorgon on her back. She was cursed by the other party when she killed Gorgon a year ago. Anyone who is seen by this eye will become petrified, turned into stone. This story is much nonsense as he can. Qinyang kept slandering in his heart, and he was very clear about this kind of thing. The curse was fake. The Empress just wanted to cover up a mark on her back, and she didn't want to let people approach her while she was taking a bath. At this point, Qinyang and the Empress were half a pound. One pretended to be the Patronus, and the other pretended to kill the big monster Gorgon. It's a little troublesome now. It's almost night, and my forced transformation is about to begin. Qinyang thought for a while, and immediately said, in this case, Benlong will not return to the city tonight. You bring the words to the Empress, and Benlong will go back to the sea to recuperate. Lord Patronus. The female protector of the country was dumbfounded and watched Qin Yang leave. Time flies, the sun soon falls below the sea level, and night comes. Qin Yang once again turned into a shadow demon. Instead of going far, he quietly sneaked back into the city. The city gate is still in a state of ban, and even Qin Yang can't stand it anymore. The Empress took a bath, and it took an hour and a half to wash, and the whole city had to wait for her. It made me sleep out in the wild tonight. Thinking about it and being a little angry, Qin Yang dodged, turned into a puff of black smoke, and quickly walked towards the palace against the ground. After staying for a few days, he also knew a lot about the road, and easily bypassed the guards and sneaked into the interior of the palace. At this moment, the Empress was naturally taking a bath, and Qin Yang silently walked through the door of the large bathhouse. As soon as you enter the interior, you immediately feel the suffocating atmosphere in the sky. A huge bath, which is as big as a swimming pool. Above the water, it is full of white steam. And behind the steam, a graceful figure was hidden inside. The steam can block the sight of humans, but it cannot block the perception of the shadow demon. Qin Yang could clearly see the state of the Empress. She was naked, squatting naked in a corner of the bathing pool, curled up, and there were tears on her face. Tisk tisk, the figure is really good, should I be polite? Qin Yang admired it for a moment, then thought jokingly, it's a pity that shadow demons don't differentiate between men and women, so they can't be hard. Pause, he said to himself, it's still the business that matters. Thinking like this, he slowly floated to the front of the Empress in the form of a wisp of black smoke. Phew. No matter how bad her mental state is, the Empress is still a first-class expert, and she immediately felt the abnormality in front of her. I saw a wisp of black smoke floating in front of my eyes, and slowly became thicker, gradually condensing into a human form. At the same time, a human voice came from the black smoke. Good evening, Empress of the Nine Snakes. I am the shadow demon, the assassin from Dream. At the same time as the voice fell, the shadow demon completely condensed into a human form. In such a bizarre scene, the Empress was still able to remain calm. She didn't do anything or panic. Instead, she squatted her body into the pool for the first time. The quality is really good, and she deserves to be an empress. Qin Yang couldn't help but praise him, saying, for the sake of Heilong, I'll give you a 50% discount this time. Sea Dragon, 50% off. The Empress's eyes flashed, feeling a little surprised, but her face was still cold. What do you mean? Deal. Qin Yang faintly isho, intending to guide, I am an assassin, and I am in the business of killing people. Even if it is a world noble Tenryubito, as long as you can pay the price, I can kill it for you. Kill Tenryubito. Empress Zhao was shocked, a little shocked. What did you say? Seeing that her reaction was as he expected, Qin Yang suddenly laughed. You want to kill Tenryubito? Don't worry, I'll kill that group of trash like slaughtering pigs and dogs. Chapter 0013 _ Who will God forgive? Don't worry, I will kill that group of trash, like butchering pigs and dogs. Chatting and laughing, Qin Yang didn't take Tenryubito in his eyes at all. Small $% carat said carat family carat text asterisk shui dollar network. Tenryubito, the nobles of the world, are descendants of the 20 kings who established the world government 800 years ago. Maybe 800 years ago, those 20 kings were heroes and celestial dragons, but after the long 800 years, their descendants have already fallen, and most of them are not worthy of being called celestial dragons. A group of bugs hiding in the shadows of their ancestors to enjoy the shade. But hearing Qin Yang express his disdain so bluntly, the Empress couldn't help but flash a splendor. Your name is Shadow Demon. The Empress said indeed, you know that sea dragon. He asked you to come. You can think so. He just told me that there is business here. The Shadow Demon grinned, I am the killer of the shadows, and I am only responsible for killing people. Tell me, Empress of the Nine Snakes, who do you want to kill? Hearing this, the Empress was silent for a while. she couldn't see through this uninvited guest who suddenly broke into her bathhouse. In this regard, Qin didn't say anything. He looked very cold and arrogant. He didn't want to talk more. He would miss out if he talked too much, and it was more important to maintain a sense of mystery. After 3 or 5 minutes, the Empress said in a cold voice, "You come from an organization called Dream. To be precise, it's the pirates. You know that sea dragon?" "For the time being. He's also a member of the fantasy pirates." "No comment. That bastard really isn't some kind of patron saint." "I don't know what to think." The Empress's light flashed, and she said with great conviction, "He must be one of yours." No clear evidence, just intuition. Then she asked again, "Can you kill Tenryubito without being afraid to mess with Marine 3 Admiral?" "Anyone who takes action on Tenryubito will be wanted by Marine and hunted down by the 3 admirals." "Oh, let's not say whether they can find me or not. Even if they can find it, there will naturally be cadres to deal with it." Qin pouted. "It seems that you have a grudge against Tenryubito. Don't beat around the bush. As long as you can afford the price, I will definitely kill someone." "What price?" "A Tenryubito head, a devil fruit, or 500 million Baileys." Qin didn't even think about it. He made an offer directly. Devil fruit. The Empress couldn't help but be a little puzzled. 500 million Bailey is understandable, but why is there a devil fruit, which is also hard currency? "You said just now that you will give your concubine a 50% discount." The Empress thought for a while, and suddenly Isha wanted to use her beauty to make people her captive. "Don't tempt me, I won't take this set, woman." Qin rolled his eyes. "This is already a discounted price." "Mean. 500 million Bailey, how can there be so much money, but it is a devil fruit. If I knew earlier, I should not have given that thing to Heilong a few days ago." Empress thought a little dully, and had to say, "I don't have 500 million concubines, and I don't have devil fruits." "No 500 million. Qin didn't believe it very much. No matter how small the daughter's country was, it was still a country after all. But thinking about it, maybe taking out 500 million in one go will put the country in a financial crisis. "Why are you so poor? I should mention a little less." Qin scolded. "Forget it, change the method. Anyway, this Tenryubito must be killed." He wants to kill Tenryubito, which is the main purpose, and earning a devil fruit from the Empress by the way is the secondary purpose. Thinking of this, Qin immediately said, "You can take advantage of these few days to prepare, and pay after I complete the assassination." "That's okay. No deposit required." The Empress couldn't help but wonder, is there such an assassination organization in the world? She already regarded the Dream Pirates as an assassination organization. "No," Qin said angrily, and then added another sentence, looking at Heilong's face, "This time it's a big discount and a lot of bleeding. Next, tell me the name of the person you want to kill." Hearing this, a trace of hatred flashed in the Empress' eyes, and she whispered a name. After listening, Qin Isho said, "Understood, at least a day, as long as a week. If you follow the world news, you will see the news of this person's death." As he said that, he waved his hand, and the whole person began to dissipate into smoke. "Goodbye, Empress of 9 Snakes, please prepare your reward before I come next time, otherwise." The latter words had faded away, and the Empress couldn't hear it, but was surprised by the Shadow Demon's elusive ability. Dream Pirates, such a mysterious organization, and listening to this Shadow Demon's tone, he is not a cadre, and even the cadre level can rival Admiral. The cadre of an organization, rivaling Admiral, can only do this kind of thing, only the 4 Emperor Pirates of the New World. Although the Empress herself has combat power close to the Admiral level, she is the Emperor of a country, and it is impossible for her to join any organization and become a mere cadre. "Interesting," she showed a faint smile. "Let my concubine see, how did you break into the heavily guarded Holy Land?" Qin left the palace and arrived at Yi before condensing his body again. Next, it's the assassination of Tenryubito. He wondered how to find the location of the person to be killed. Tenryubito stayed in the Holy Land Mariajoy, on the Red Earth continent, and the world government was also there, so it could be said that the place was the stronghold and the protection was very strong. I'm not in a hurry. Anyway, there are still 4 days. When the forced transformation period ends, I will leave the 9-Snake Island. It's enough to solve it before leaving. He said to himself, Tenryubito, it must be killed. If he kills it, he can take the opportunity to play a wave of advertisements and let the world know the name of Dream. Tenryubito has done too many evil things. There are enemies all over the world, and there are too many people who can afford the head fee. Chinyang believed that as long as someone dared to assassinate Tenryubito, countless people around the world would be willing to give away money or devil fruit, begging to kill him. It can be said that this time, even if the Empress does not give a penny, he will kill Tenryubito, but he may find another buyer. This plan was carefully planned by Chinyang in the past 3 days. Tenryubito, ah Tenryubito, don't blame me, who made you do the evil things before? Chinyang murmured softly, and while he was speaking, the sky was spinning, and he traveled a distance of hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. In the woods, Chinyang's sigh still echoed. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end, and the way of heaven is good for reincarnation. If you don't believe it, look up, who will the heaven forgive? Chapter 0014_Lord, why are you here? Why are there so few flowers? Let's put some flowers in ~O, hollow square O, please collect, reward, flowers ~. Close black lens bracket. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end, and the way of heaven is good for reincarnation. If you don't believe it, look up, who will the heaven forgive? In the woods, Chinyang's words resounded with mockery and emotion. As soon as he closed his eyes and opened his eyes, Chinyang came to Sabayati Archipelago again. There were several familiar voices in my ears. Captain, we have investigated the Dream Pirates, but we couldn't find any information at all. Could it be the shadow demon who lied to us? That's right, he definitely won't dare to announce his name if he messes with our Tomahawk Pirates. It is estimated that the name Shadow Demon is also a lie. Damn it, you actually made fun of our Tomahawk Pirates. A group of pirates gathered in a hotel somewhere, and at this moment, they gathered together and denounced it. The bald man snorted coldly and touched his left foot that was injured a few days ago. That bastard, don't let me meet him again, or I'll definitely get it. Death was spoken, a wisp of black smoke drifted past, gradually condensing a human figure. Otherwise what will happen? Chinyang said playfully. As soon as he appeared, a group of pirates looked horrified and took a few steps back, shocked and angry. The bald man's expression changed greatly, and his wrists shook with fright, so that he didn't drop the wine glass he was holding. The next moment, he changed his coldness from before, nodded and bowed, and said with a forced smile, Master Ying, why are you here? Don't let me know, you can prepare the banquet. What did you just say? Chinyang teased, you want to kill me? No no no, which bastard dares to say that? The bald man turned cold and glanced at his subordinates, you. Are you? No no no. Several pirates waved their hands quickly, for fear of being targeted by Chinyang. Master Ying is our idol, whoever wants to take action against him is the enemy of our Tomahawk Pirates. Hearing this, Chinyang shook his head with a smile, waved his hand, and said, Don't worry, I'm not here to trouble you, just to ask you a few questions. Master, you ask, Shaoji has nothing to say. The bald man immediately said with a smile, but he couldn't help wiping sweat in his heart. This attitude is not bad. Chinyang nodded in satisfaction and said, Recently, Sabayati Archipelago, has Tenryubito been here? The world noble Tenryubito. The bald man thought for a while, then shook his head and said, I heard that a Tenryubito came a week ago and returned to the Holy Land a few days ago. There is no Tenryubito on the island now. Chinyang confirmed. No, there shouldn't be. The bald man couldn't be sure, so he had to say, if there is, with Tenryubito's pomp, it must be a big fanfare, but now the island is very quiet. Really? I see. You can help me collect information. If you do a good job, it will naturally benefit you. Qinyang chuckled and said, as for the investigation, you don't have to waste your efforts. Just based on your level, you still want to find out the existence of dream. With a sarcasm, Qinyang waved his hand and began to dissipate. He came and went quickly. As soon as he left, the bald man breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did he realize that he was dripping with cold sweat, as if he had walked between life and death. Compared to last time, this bastard's momentum is stronger, one pirate said cautiously. Huh, the bald-headed man glared at him and looked around carefully to confirm that Qinyang was gone, and then hummed, what do you call him? You want to call him Ying Yi, do you hear me? Pause, he added, we can't find the existence of dream, which means that our level is not enough. This time, the task given by the Shadow Master must be completed well. Having said that, the bald man only believed half of it, mainly because he was afraid that Qinyang would kill him with a knife. That elusive ability to engage in assassination, who can escape? Even if someone could hide, at least the bald man thought he couldn't. Men, you have to be able to bend and stretch. In the bottom of my heart, the bald man secretly warned himself. Not at Sabayati Archipelago. Opening his eyes, Qinyang returned to Nine Snakes Island. He frowned and whispered to himself, I originally planned to find a Tenryubito to ask, but now it seems that I can only go to the Holy Land. Holy Land Mariajoy, the headquarters of the world government, is located at the top of the Red Earth continent. There are only two ways to enter the Holy Land. First, Marine was in the port of the Holy Land, mixed in by passing warships. Second, disguised as a member of the world government member countries, to enter the Holy Land. However, for Qinyang, there is no need to be so troublesome, he only needs a coordinate of a holy place. Like the bald man before, he has become his coordinates, allowing him to travel between the Nine Snakes Island and Sabayati Archipelago at will. It's troublesome. No, it's not troublesome, it's just physical work. I don't know how many times I have to try. Thinking helplessly, Qinyang closed his eyes, and his consciousness came to the starry sky map again. Endless stars twinkle, bright or dark. After these 3 days of research, he has already felt a little bit of regularity. These star points do not appear randomly and disorderly, but represent the orientation. For example, with him as the center and the star point on the north side, it means that the target person is in the north of Nine Snake Island. With this law in place, it is not impossible to find the coordinates of the Holy Land Mariajoy. When he thought of it, he did it, and Qinyang immediately started a huge project. To say it is huge is absolutely true. All night long, Qinyang didn't know how many times he tried. Seeing the sunrise, he finally let him enter the Holy Land. The situation changed, and Qinyang appeared in a kitchen. The kitchen is very busy. Many chefs are busy preparing breakfast, and the person targeted by Qinyang seems to be just a servant, cleaning in the kitchen. At the age of 17 or 18, the boy walked out of the kitchen with a bag after cleaning up the garbage. Is this the mansion of some great man? This man is a slave. Qinyang hid in the shadows and did not appear until the servant walked out of the mansion and walked to the incinerator at the back of the yard, then he spoke quietly. Don't talk, you will die if you yell. Not if you understand. Such a sinister voice sounded out of thin air, and the little servant was so frightened that his legs trembled, and his heart was terrified. He nodded hurriedly, not daring to move. Very well, I'll ask you a few questions. If you're satisfied, you'll be fine. Qinyang, Isho, said, where is this place? Mariajoy. Whose is this house? It's the mansion of Saint Roswald. Really? Qinyang thought in surprise. He was lucky enough to travel directly to a Tenryubito's house, but unfortunately, this was not the goal. What do you want to do? The boy gathered up his courage and said this. What do you think I want to do? Qinyang pouted and continued to ask, Narudik, do you know who it is? I know, is one of Tenryubito. He and Saint Roswald are good friends. They see each other from time to time. The servant was still frightened. Very good, Qin Yang's eyes lit up. Where does this person live? Go out from here, go straight for 500 meters, turn right until you reach the church. The largest house nearby is the home of Saint Narudik. The little servant's heartbeat was getting faster and faster. He had a premonition that something big would happen tonight. And he may be an accomplice. I'm very satisfied with your answer. In today's matter, you just pretend that you didn't hear anything or see anything. Otherwise, I'll come back to find you. Yes, my lord. I'm just a little slave, I won't do superfluous things. The servant hurriedly promised, but after waiting for a long time, no sound was heard. But he still didn't dare to move, and he had been standing stupidly for more than 10 minutes before he breathed a sigh of relief and fell to the ground softly. At the same time, Qin Yang has found his target. He stood in front of a big chuang and looked coldly at the sleeping fat pig on the chuang. Chapter 0015 Big Event That Shocked the World. In the darkness, the shadow demon floated in front of a large chuang. He looked like a man in his 30s, his face was oily, and he snorted loudly when he slept. This is the goal. Qin Yang looked at the other party lightly, and said in his heart, Tenryubito, although there is no enmity or hatred between us, I'm really sorry, the reincarnation of heaven, even if I act for the heaven. Thinking like this, Qin Yang raised his right hand slightly, and suddenly there was endless black smoke condensing, and a sharp blade appeared in an instant. As if sensing a crisis, Tenryubito on the chuang scratched his face unconsciously, turned over, and went back to sleep, unaware that in the darkness, a pair of eyes with murderous intent were looking down at him from a height. Without hesitation, Qin Yang shot. For the first time, he had no experience in killing someone, so he could only use his only knowledge of the human body to take a critical attack. Heart. Puff. The dark blade of shadow pierced, penetrated the luxurious quilt, pierced the skin, and finally pierced the heart. Suddenly, Tenryubito on Chuang's eyes widened, he raised his hand to touch the pain, but his heart was pierced, leaving him weak. When I opened my eyes, I could only see darkness, and in the darkness, those terrifying eyes. I am so sorry for making you feel the pain before dying. Qin Yang spoke softly, and suddenly pulled out the blade of shadow. The next moment, the sword light flashed, and the sharp blade pierced his throat. After struggling for only 5 or 6 seconds, the man on the chuang was already dead. He wanted to open his mouth to cry for help, but he couldn't make a sound. To the death, he couldn't believe that Tenryubito, a nobleman of the world, would be assassinated in an absolutely safe holy place. With a light breath, Qin Yang confirmed that the target was dead, then pulled out the blade of shadow and was silent for a moment. With the tip of the sword stained with blood, he wrote words on the wall. Murderer, dream pirates, shadow demon. At the end, there is still a skull. The mission is now complete. Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction, then glanced at the corpse on the chuang. This is only the first one, I hope the next buyer will find it soon. With a low laugh, the next moment, Qin Yang's body began to dissipate into smoke. Qin Yang returned to 9 Snake Island. At this moment, it was the time for the sunrise at sea. Today will be a good day, after all, I have cleared the world of a cancer. With a breath, Qin Yang found a big tree, sat down against the trunk, looked at the bright light of the sunrise, closed his eyes, and slowly fell into sleep. After he kills people and sleeps, it can be said that it is easy. However, because of his actions, the world government was shaken violently, no less than a magnitude 10 earthquake in the Holy Land Mariajoy. The person who found Narudik's body was a maid in the family. When she was about to serve the master in the morning, she saw a cold body. Looking terrified, the maid let out a scream and fainted from fright on the spot. Afterwards, this incident completely detonated, and everyone in the mansion knew that Master Tenryubito had been assassinated, and everyone became extremely terrified. Mention being killed, Tenryubito was bumped by ordinary people, it was a big deal. Not to mention, the murderer quietly killed the world nobles in the base camp of the world government, which is almost the same as declaring war. Soon, this matter was passed on layer by layer and entered the ears of the top officials of the world government. Who did it? In a splendid office, 5 old men were sitting around a round table, and one of the knife-wielding men couldn't help but said, "This is the Holy Land Mariajoy. The murderers have left their names on the wall." An old man with a square face snorted. "This is a naked provocation. Dream pirates. I've never heard of it. They have the ability to sneak into the Holy Land quietly. Could they be the 4 emperors? Shadow Demon. The 4 emperors don't have this number. Compared to this, first block the entire Holy Land, and the murderer cannot escape, otherwise where will the face of the world government be put?" Each of the 5 old men said a word, and the words were all high above. These 5 people are the pillars of the world government, the highest power, Gorosei, 5 elders, and every status is above Marine Marshal Sengoku. There has never been an assassination of Tenryubito in the past, so it's not easy to deal with. Block the news first, otherwise it will cause chaos in the Holy Land, and the rest of the Tenryubito nobles will be in danger. It's too late, the whole Holy Land has already known about this, and now it's a mess outside. Damn it, it seems that the only way is to hand the murderer to Marine. Let the intelligence department CP0 investigate the dream pirates, and now stabilize the situation in the Holy Land. The 5 discussed for a while, and quickly made a decision. Someone, take the phone bug and contact Marine headquarters. Sengoku, as far away as Marineford, was apprehensive to receive a call from Gorosei, 5 elders. He never imagined that there would be such a daring person in the world who dared to commit murder in the holy place of Mariajoy, which is known as absolutely safe, and even killed a Tenryubito. It's a joke. Boom. When he hung up the phone, Sengoku Yuan smashed the new table with a handsome palm. Someone, go and gather the 3 admirals. The Marines on standby outside were startled, and hurriedly went to notify the Marine 3 Admiral. After a while, 3 men in justice coats came to the Marshal's office. Not only that, but a Vice Admiral who was eating senbei came in with him. Sengoku, early in the morning, you are so angry, do you want some senbei? Vice Admiral is in his 50s, and he smiles with big white teeth. Garp. Sengoku's face darkened and he said with a headache, now is not the time for jokes, something big has happened. A big deal. Garp was stunned for a moment, and continued nibbling on the senbei with disapproval. Here's urging Shichibukai again. Didn't we find 4 people already? There are 3 more, the Empress is also fast, and I don't know if they are in a hurry. What? No. Sengoku opened his mouth and said bitterly, Tenryubito is dead. Killed in the Holy Land. As soon as these words came out, the 4 people present changed their expressions. Akainu's eyes widened, and he said incredulously, impossible. That's a holy place, who did it? A man named Shadow Demon, claiming to be the Dream Pirates. Shadow Demon. Akainu suddenly remembered that the eerie shadow of a few days. Chapter 0165_billion reward. Shadow Demon. When he heard the name, Akainu immediately remembered that a few days ago, that dark shadow appeared in Sengoku's office. Ignoring physical attacks, and making it invisible to top experts like Sengoku, this ability, used to assassinate and infiltrate, is very likely to be accomplished. Holy place of Mariajoy is known as absolutely safe, and even if the world is destroyed, the holy place will be the last refuge. Tenryubito was killed. It's terrifying. Even Tiger 3 years ago just climbed onto the red soil continent with his bare hands and freed the slaves, and he didn't dare to do anything to Tenryubito. The speaker had curly black hair, a suit with yellow and white stripes, a beard on his face, and a pair of sunglasses. He was tall and thin. This person is Kizaru, one of the 3 admirals, whose real name is Borsellino. He has been an admiral for less than half a year. After hearing his words, Sengoku's face became worse and worse. Killed Tenryubito in the Holy Land. Now the Holy Land is rioting, causing Tenryubito to be angry. Gorosei, 5 elders are still dealing with the murderer. We need our marine to hunt down. Who knows, Shadow Demon, this person. Hearing that, among the 3 admirals, Kuzan Admiral, who was also tall but wearing a white suit vest and dark blue shirt, sighed. Not sure, he said. Haven't heard of it. Kizaru shook his head as well, seemingly lacking interest in the matter. Only Akainu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but when the words came to his lips, he remained silent. Sengoku took a deep breath. He knew that Tenryubito was not to be seen, even the top marines. There were a lot of people who couldn't see it. After pondering for a while, he asked again, the Shadow Demon claims to be from the Dream Pirates. Does anyone know about this pirate group? The answers are almost identical. Not sure. I haven't heard of it. I don't know. 3 admirals said a word, obviously not knowing anything about a pirate group that suddenly appeared. Sengoku was so angry that he wanted to slap the table. Then tell me, how should we deal with this matter? Ha ha ha, Sengoku, calm down. Garp Vice Admiral Haha Isho said, it's just that a Tenryubito was killed, just follow the normal procedure. Hearing the first half of the sentence, Sengoku wanted to swear, but after listening to the second half, he calmed down again. He had to admit that he became a little bit shy because of the keywords, Holy Land, Assassination, and Tenryubito. Impetuous. Taking a deep breath, he thought for a while, and then ordered in a deep voice. In this case, issue a wanted notice first. Regarding the murderer Shadow Demon, a reward of 500 million will be offered. Kuzan, bring a warship to the Holy Land to investigate this matter. After a pause, he continued, you two, go investigate the Dream Pirates. This pirate group is listed as a super threat. Special threat. Kizaru was taken aback. This level is a treatment that only the 4 Emperor pirates have, which means that they are constantly monitoring trends and reporting any information to the Marshal in person. It's just that they don't even know where the Dream Pirates are or who they are, and they can't talk about monitoring. Not to mention the reaction from Marine and the world government. Tenryubito was assassinated in the Holy Land of Mariajoy, and the impunity of the murderer is just the beginning, and it is spreading around the world at the speed of a storm. It's like a pebble is dropped on a calm lake. No matter what, the water waves will not disappear and will continue to radiate outward until the end of the lake. As for Nine Snake Island, because it is in a windless zone, the news is very blocked, so no relevant information has been obtained for the time being. At noon, Chinyang, who had been sleeping by the tree, felt the shouts in his ears, and slowly opened his eyes. Lord Patronus! Lord Patronus! Chinyang opened his eyes and saw a 9 snakes protecting the country. Morning. Chinyang chuckled lightly, got up slowly, and moved his stiff limbs. Seeing his sunny smile, the national protector blushed slightly, although she didn't know why she blushed. Shaking her head, she hurriedly said, Lord Patronus, Lady Empress is going to lead the pirate group out to sea and is looking for you, now at the ferry. She's going to sea. Chinyang was startled for a moment, and then he reacted. The Empress now owes him 500 million Bailey, and it is estimated that she is preparing to go out to sea to loot, or to find a devil fruit. Suddenly, Chinyang sounded like something, and asked in his mind, how long is the forced transformation left? Last night left, Fantasy Jean replied. Very good. It's time to leave the 9 Snake Island. Chinyang grinned. I hope the Empress will have better luck, pay off the assassination fee early, and then directly use the money to buy a devil fruit, so that the first 3 transformations. Thinking of this, Chinyang immediately said, let's go, lead the way. Yes. Soon, the two came to the ferry, the ship of the 9 Snake Pirates was docked, and many crew members were carrying some necessities for sailing at sea. Chinyang was invited to the captain's room. The queen sat in the tent. The pink silk tent made him unable to see the inside. Where did you go last night, Patronus? The queen's voice was like spring water from a green mountain, beating pebbles. I have to ask you. You can close the whole city after taking a shower. It's really majestic. Qinyang teased. Benlong is not so delicate, so just find a place to sleep. When he said it, the empress was also a little embarrassed, of course, just a little bit. This concubine went to sea mainly to find a devil fruit. She whispered, the previous one was eaten by you, so this operation requires your help. Yes. Qinyang agreed casually. Anyway, he will be back to normal in one night, and he is not going to write ink with the empress, and he will show up at that time. He promised so readily that the empress was caught off guard, and even the empress thought of several things. In that case, Amanda, tell the whole ship to get ready to sail. After the two agreed, Qinyang went to his room to rest. The pirate ship sailed out of the watergate and headed for the great route in a farewell. There are 2 swimming snakes pulling the boat, and the speed of the boat is naturally fast. A few hours later, it was out of the windlass belt and into the great route. At this moment, a crew member walked into the captain's room with a stack of wanted orders in his hand and reported to the Empress. My Lady Empress, this was dropped by a seagull kept by Marine. The crew said, it's the latest issue of the wanted order. Bring it to my concubine to see. The Empress got a thick stack of wanted warrants and turned it over at will. This kind of wanted order is partly an update of the reward amount, and partly a new reward. Turning over, the Empress suddenly moved, and she saw a very strange wanted notice. There is no photo above, just a big question mark, and below it is the name and other information. Shadow Demon. Fantasy Pirates. Bounty, 500 million. Live or die. Seeing this name, the Empress turned pale with shock, and her beautiful eyes revealed a touch of shock. How is it possible? Chapter 0017 Looting Gold. 017 Robbery of Heavenly Gold. 500 million reward. The Queen looked at the wanted warrant in her hand, and her heart was shaken. The Shadow Demon, the first time she saw it last night, was a mysterious figure shrouded in darkness. Never heard of it before, let alone a warrant issued by a pirate. One-time reward, the amount is as high as 500 million. The Empress couldn't believe it. What did he do? You must know that the Empress herself was wanted for the first time, and the bounty was only 80 million. This number has not changed until now. There were some guesses in his heart, but the Empress couldn't believe it. Has he already killed the Tenryubito? Opening her rosy little mouth, the Empress was speechless for a while. Really, this guess is too unreal. The target that was locked last night has already been completed at noon today. 5 days to travel from the Nine Snakes Island to the Holy Land Mariajoy, even by the fastest boat. Don't worry, I will kill Tenryubito like a pig and a dog. The words of the Shadow Demon sounded in her heart, and the Empress couldn't help but smile bitterly. The other party really didn't talk big. Dream Pirates. It's a terrifying organization. Tenryubito said they would kill if they wanted to. They completed the assassination mission within a day, and the assassin, Ying Yao, among them, was not even a cadre. Except for the assassination of Tenryubito, the Empress couldn't think of what heinous crime should have been committed, so that Marine would give such a high reward all at once. Of great pirates in the world with a reward of more than 500 million, but they are all added up from zero. Like the Shadow Demon, it is directly 500 million. As far as the Empress knows, it is the first. Would you like to ask Heilong? Suddenly, the Empress was born with a strong curiosity. Dream pirates, he must be one of them, maybe a cadre. This kind of thinking was soon wiped out by the Empress, who asked her to take the initiative to ask Heilong. Even if the other party was the patron saint, she didn't want to go. Shaking her head, the Empress put the wanted order aside and instructed softly, Haosheng entertains the patron saint. Yes, Lady Empress. Qinyang stayed in his room, doing physical exercises. Although he has the ability to transform now, his body is an ordinary person. The ability of this world is very strange, and he will be recruited if he is not good. Therefore, it is essential to strengthen his own training. 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, 50 squats. After more than half an hour, Chin Yong was already sweating profusely. This workout is so inefficient, should I get someone to teach me? At least learn a little fighting technique, marine rokushiki or something, and hockey. Chin Yong thought about this issue seriously, but for the time being, there are no conditions. In the Great Route, there are many people with fruit ability, but the real fighting technique experts are relatively rare. Well, exercise by yourself first, and then think about this after you're done with this section. Thinking of this, Chin Yong made a training plan for himself. Although it was inefficient, it was better than nothing. The 9 snake pirates are sailing on the Great Route, flying the pirate flag, and avoiding any ships they see. In the afternoon, Chin Yong discovered this. The Empress does not seem to be interested in some small merchant ships, and even lacks interest in shooting. Throughout the day, the pirate ship cruised around a certain area of water, seemingly ready to sit back and wait. What's the matter? Later that night, when the crew brought dinner, Chin Yong couldn't help asking questions. Reporting to the patron saint, you are asking, why didn't you intercept the merchant ship? Yes, our pirate ship has been cruising in this sea area, and we have encountered 3 or 5 merchant ships. This is because of Her Lady Empress's order. The crew member explained with a smile. Those are just small merchant ships, and even if you go to grab them, you won't be able to grab anything good. So that's the case, Chin Yong asked curiously. You mean, there will be large caravans passing by in this sea area? Yes. The crewman nodded. This sea area is a must to link several islands, one of which is the fertile Sabayati archipelago, so there are often large merchant ships coming and going, and there is even a special for Tenryubido, Heavenly Gold, fleet. Chin Yong immediately understood. I see, you go down, don't disturb me if it's all right. Yes. When the people left, Chin Yong began to enjoy dinner. I don't know if it was because of this person's crow's mouth. The next morning, the 9 snake pirates encountered a large merchant ship far away, and the flag of Tenryubito was also flying, representing that this ship was golden in the sky. A vessel dedicated to the service of Tenryubito. According to estimates, the size of the ship is still above the pirate ship, or even 2 or 3 times the size. Intercept them. The Empress walked out of the cabin and gave orders to the 2 swimming snakes. Immediately, the 2 snakes held the boat with all their strength and quickly pursued the merchant ship. In just 10 minutes, the pirate ship had already tied the merchant ship, but the people on the merchant ship didn't seem to be ready to sit still and set up artillery on the deck, ready to fight back. Break down and stop the ship. A crew member shouted. We are the 9 snake pirates. Hand over your cargo and all your valuable jewelry. Hearing the name of the 9 snake pirates, there was a commotion on the merchant ship. After a while, a middle-aged man with a pot belly came out and shouted angrily, 9 snake pirates. I have heard of you, do you know what you are doing? This is the golden merchant ship in the sky, and everything on the ship is the property of Tenryubito. Tenryubito. A few burly female men sneered. No matter who you are, stop the boat. Otherwise, we will kill you all. The 2 ships were hundreds of meters apart, and they shouted directly to each other without flagging. Chin Yong was sitting on the edge of the boat, looking very interesting. He wanted to continue watching the play leisurely, but the Empress turned her attention. Guardian, you eat and drink freely in your concubine's territory, and you can't even teach a few soldiers to protect the country. Now, it's time for you to do things. Huh, Chin Yong was stunned and said strangely, are you sure you want me to take action? Hearing this, the Empress suddenly had a bad premonition, but she snorted softly and said, the opposite is Tenryubito's ship, don't you dare. Ha ha, little girl, I still want to use aggressive tactics. Chin Yong ha ha, Isho, he made up his mind to take all the valuables on board and run away, and say goodbye to the Empress. Since you said so, then, Benlong will take a shot. As soon as the voice fell, Qin Yang groaned. Instant gold, dazzling white light flickered, and a huge sea dragon appeared impressively. Dragon. On the merchant ship, everyone's expressions changed in horror. Chapter 0018_got rich. Dragon. The people on the merchant ship were terrified and inexplicable. Dragon-shaped creatures were relatively rare. The head in front of him was more than 20 meters long, with its teeth and claws dancing. After entering the water, it stirred up the sea. Don't be frightened, it's just a sea king. The pot-bellied captain roared, shoot it at it. As soon as the voice fell, a sailor immediately followed suit. Immediately, with a roar, a solid shell was shot towards Qin Yang. The naval guns of this era didn't even have grape shells. A mere solid shell, for Qin Yang, was almost like scratching the itch. With a wave of the dragon's claw, the projectiles that came flying were shot flying. If you saturate your attacks, you might still be able to deal a little damage. A few shells, what are you kidding? Qin Yang moved his claws, and Longan stared directly at the people on the boat, separated by dozens of meters. Can you talk? This time, a group of people were frightened. Dragon-shaped creatures are rare, but they still exist after all, but a talking sea dragon is incredible. Ship, Captain. Sailors looked at the big-bellied man. However, the captain was also stunned at the moment. It was the first time he met a pirate group who dared to rob the sky, and it was the first time he met a talking sea dragon. Seeing that the people on the merchant ship were sluggish, Qin Yang suddenly felt bored. It seems that there are no combatants on the ship, and it's also who would think about robbing the gold in the sky, and the Empress is so bold. After a pause, he asked again in his heart, Huan, scan it to see if there is any mysterious power on board. In the blink of an eye, Fantasy Jean replied, scan results, no. No, if that's the case, then I'm welcome. With a long cry, Qin Yang suddenly moved. With a flick of the dragon's tail hidden underwater, the entire body suddenly flew out like a sharp sword. Even the two sea snakes have super high speed. Qin Yang, who is a sea dragon, is even stronger in terms of instantaneous explosive power. Whoosh! The huge body lined the ocean current, and Qin Yang's dragon head plunged into the merchant ship. Boom! With a violent shaking, the entire merchant ship almost rolled over due to the impact, and many sailors along the ship fell from the ship into the sea because of this impact. Ship, Captain, it's leaking, someone exclaimed, turning pale with fright. Yes, to sink. Monster. There was a commotion on the deck. Qin Yang ignored this. He plunged his head into the storage room of the merchant ship, and was immediately attracted by several boxes. The dragon claws snapped, and the iron lock on the box was broken, and the opened box was filled with gold, silver, jewelry, and all kinds of gems. Good stuff. Qin Yang's eyes lit up, and without thinking, he opened the dragon's mouth and bit a treasure chest in one bite. The next moment, his body twisted, and the whole person broke through the hull and returned to the sea. Lord Patronus, Amanda exclaimed. On the side, the Empress Vivi frowned, always feeling that something was wrong. This hunch will be fulfilled in the next second. I saw Qin Yang flick his tail and flee quickly, with no intention of looking back. Little Empress, Benlong won't play with you anymore. I want to take the treasure. Goodbye, goodbye, ha ha ha. With a loud laugh, Heilong quickly evacuated. Lord Patronus, a group of women shouted dumbly. Benlong is not a patron saint. Thank you for the past few days, bye. The voice gradually faded away, and in the blink of an eye, not even a shadow could be seen. This time, not only the 9 snake pirates, but even the survivors on the merchant ship looked sluggish. Only the female emperor's face turned blue and white, and finally turned into a burst of shame and anger. Bastard! My concubine will not forgive you. I will catch up to the ends of the earth, slap your dragon's tendons, and strip your dragon's skin. Qin Yang is very happy now. He robbed the gold in the sky, but the black pot is the back of the Empress, and it is difficult to find him in trouble, although he is not afraid of trouble. It was not until night that Qin Yang came ashore carrying a large bag of gold and silver jewelry. The place he chose to sell the stolen goods was Sabayati Archipelago, where there were a lot of fish and dragons, and the black forces were all over the place. No one would have imagined that he had just grabbed Tenryubido's boat and went to Tenryubido's back garden to sell the stolen goods in a blink of an eye. At this moment, in a VIP room, an old man wearing glasses was staring carefully at the jewelry on the table. This is the super green onyx on the crown when the 13th king of the North Blue Aishanil Kingdom was crowned. This is worth at least 80 million Baileys. Beside the old man, a man in a suit lit his eyes, pointed to another item, and asked, "Where's this dagger?" This is the going dagger forged by a national-level blacksmith in the Eritrea Kingdom of South Blue. There are only 10 in the world, worth 50 million Baileys. What about this? The man in the suit asked again excitedly. This is... The appraiser was suspicious for a while, and then said excitedly, "Is this a special product of Ice and Snow Island, ice silk? According to rumors, clothes made of this kind of silk will not feel the heat when worn in summer. This big bag is at least 10 years production." After a pause, he looked at the opposite man, who was wearing a cloak and drinking black tea. "This is a special offering from Tenryubido, sir. Where did you come from?" "You don't care where I got it. How much?" Qin Yang said calmly. "Don't tell me, you also have things you dare not sell." Before waiting for the appraiser to speak, the man in the suit said first, "How come?" "You think too much. We never ask where you came from. As long as you get it here, it's a trade item." "I like a straightforward person like you." Qin Yang chuckled and said, "I'll sell it all to you here. Let's calculate the total price." "Okay, wait a minute." Man in the suit, Hey Isho, starts to count. "There are a lot of things in this big package, each of which is very precious. Let's say a few million, the top ones can even reach hundreds of millions." However, in fact, Qin Yang only took out half of it, and kept the other half, which he did not sell. After waiting for half an hour, the total price was calculated. Man in the suit said respectfully, "Guest, the goods you took out totaled 29 pieces, with a total value of more than 595 million yuan. I'll do the math here for you, totaling 600 million yuan. Do you want cash or passbooks?" 600 million. Rao was prepared, and Qin Yang couldn't help being surprised. This casual robbery can make 600 million yuan, and the merchant ships of the sky are too rich. Moreover, this is only half. If all are sold, I am afraid it will exceed 1 billion. Thinking of this, Qin Yang felt a little helpless. Such a large amount, even if it is paper money, it takes 6 boxes, which is too conspicuous to take out. Passbook. 100 million cash, 500 million passbook. Okay, wait a minute. After a while, the man in the suit handed over the things to Qin Yang, and then handed out a golden card. "This is the VIP card of our auction house. With this card, you can enjoy a 5% discount." Qin Yang took it and glanced at it. The card was golden, at least the surface was gilded. Just listening to the man in the suit continued, "Actually, there will be a large auction in our auction house tomorrow. If you are interested, you can come and have a look." "Auction what?" Qin Yang's heart moved, and he asked calmly, "Are there any devil fruits?" "Devil fruit?" The man in the suit paused for a while before saying, "Yes, there is only one. Because you are a VIP, I will tell you directly, or I can tell you that the reserve price is 100 million. 100 million. Qin Yang thought for a while, then smiled. "I see, I'll come and see tomorrow, then, I'm leaving." 600 million in his pocket, Qin Yang is also a little confident. He will wait until tomorrow to take down that devil fruit and start the third transformation. Chapter 0019_auctions. Qin Yang sold the stolen goods and got 600 million. It happened that he learned that there will be a devil fruit auction tomorrow, which can be said to be a double happiness. The starting price is 100 million yuan, and the transaction price may be uncontrollable by then. Qin Yang is not sure that 600 million yuan will be won. If there is an accident, he can only think of other ways, such as grabbing it directly from the buyer. However, I can't reveal my identity. I have just grabbed Tenryubito, so I have to keep a low profile and borrow the name of the Tomahawk Pirates. Thinking of this, Qin Yang chuckled lightly. After returning to the hotel where he was staying, he immediately transformed into a figure demon and passed behind the bald man. The Tomahawk Pirates stayed in Sabayati Archipelago, waiting for the completion of the coating of the ship. At this time, at night, in a tavern, the group of C sat around, staring at the stack of wanted orders on the table, in a daze. Captain, what the hell did that shadow demon do? Marine wants him for 500 million. 500 million, 80s, this is the first time I have seen such a high bounty. Idiot, can you call the shadow demon? You want to call it Master Ying. Several pirates, you and I, were blinded by the number of 500 million, and their entire pirate group added up to less than 100 million. But the bald man looked thoughtful and said in a low voice, you forgot the last time the shadow demon came to us. Did you ask anything? Tenryubito, a younger brother's eyes widened. Yes, there are rumors from the Holy Land during the day, the bald man said solemnly, a Tenryubito was killed. All the pirates took a deep breath and killed Tenryubito, and they were still in the Holy Land, so daring. After a pause, the bald captain shook his head again and said, however, it shouldn't be possible, it is a holy land, and ordinary people want to enter, they have to climb the red soil continent of several kilometers with bare hands like Fisher Tiger 3 years ago. As soon as he finished speaking, a voice sounded faintly. Don't guess, I killed a Tenryubito. Following these words, a black figure slowly appeared. Shadow, the bald man was shocked, and the next moment, his expression changed like lightning, and changed to a smirk. Master, are you here again? Well, next time you come, can you notify my younger brother first? Qin Yang glanced at him. Being stared at like this, the bald man shuddered suddenly. This guy dared to touch the ruthless character who killed Tenryubito in the Holy Land. If he was not happy, no one would be surprised if he slashed him with a knife. Ying Yi, did you really kill a Tenryubito? The bald man couldn't help but be curious and wanted to confirm. Otherwise, why do you think Marine wants me to be wanted? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and said playfully, you also have a grudge against Tenryubito. It's easy to do, if you can afford the price, I can kill you. Hearing this, the bald man was terrified. Listening to what this means, it seems that the shadow demon is just a killer, someone else pays money to buy the murderer, and while talking and laughing, the shadow demon doesn't take Tenryubito seriously at all, and seems to kill if he wants to. Qin Yang waved his hand and said, I came to see you today because I have something for you to do. Master Ying, your business is mine. The bald-headed man said quickly, for fear of angering the shadow demon. It's just a trivial matter. Qin Yang shook his head and said, tomorrow I have a friend who is going to participate in an auction. At that time, you will follow him and participate in the name of the Tomahawk Pirates, understand? Understood. The bald man nodded again and again. This matter is nothing more than hiding his identity and borrowing the name of the Tomahawk Pirates. That, Ying Yi, is your friend also a dreamer? At the end, the bald man asked very carefully. Hearing this, Qin Yang thought for a while before teasing, to inquire too much is not good for you. Yes. However, I can tell you that the man has a bad temper, but he is still above me in the dream. You'd better not anger him, or even I can't save you. The bald man was taken aback, could it be a dream cadre? With a wave of his hand, Qin Yang waved his hand and began to dissipate. Before leaving, he left another sentence. Tomorrow, you go to this place to wait, understand? Understood. Nodding with satisfaction, Qin Yang left completely. The bald man was worried, obviously frightened by Qin Yang's words. A shadow demon is so terrifying, and another person who is still above the shadow demon may be a monster of a cadre. Captain, do you want to listen to the shadow demon? A younger brother asked softly. The bald man glared at the man, and said cautiously, do you want to die? What if the family doesn't leave? You have to call him Ying Yi. Is the Ying Yao you call me? Yes, Ying Yi. Open your eyes tomorrow. Don't provoke that big man, or everyone will die. The bald captain wanted to cry but had no tears. He felt that he hadn't slept well since he met the shadow demon. The next day, Qinyang dressed up in disguise, wearing a large cloak, and the cloak hat covered half of his face, so as not to be remembered for his appearance. He went to see the people of the Tomahawk Pirates in this way, but the pirates did not dare to have any doubts, and they were very respectful along the way, for fear of saying one more word, angering him, and causing death. Qinyang laughed secretly, but his whole body exuded the aura that strangers should not enter, which made a group of pirates tremble even more. Soon, the group entered the auction house. This auction house is located at number 11 GR, which means number 11 district. Sabayadi archipelago is divided into 79 areas, of which number 1 to number 29 are areas that are unlawful. Here, human trafficking, human auctions, casinos, and prostitution are all open and above board. Qinyang was among the Tomahawk Pirates and participated in the auction in the name of the Tomahawk Pirates. However, the bald man who was the captain was only worth 75 million, so he was placed in the lobby on the first floor. Looking up, you can see that there are many people on the second floor. The people there, in the case of pirates, at least have a reward of more than 100 million yuan. Sir, what's next? The bald man asked respectfully. Qinyang said in a low voice, you will make an offer later, I will let you shoot, and you will shoot again. No. The bald man nodded again and again to make it clear. At this moment, the hall became dark, and then, 2 spotlights hit the stage, and then a young auctioneer in fancy dress walked to the stage with a gavel. Welcome the elites of the world, come to participate in this grand auction of treasures. Chapter 0020 Lao Su is a dream cadre. Welcome all elites, come to participate in this treasure auction, I am the auctioneer rabbi. The young man who called himself a rabbi, dressed in fancy, red, yellow, blue and green, and a pair of black men's high heels, looked rather weird. After hearing his opening remarks, many people let out a burst of laughter. Stop talking nonsense and start quickly. Sir, you are very impatient. The rabbi had a calm smile on his face. However, since everyone has no objection, let's forget the sideshow and start directly. After a pause, he waved his hand and pointed to the side of the stage. The first item is a young and beautiful female mermaid. At this time, a female staff member wearing a mask stepped onto the center stage with a large bathtub. The fish tank is round, with an opening above, and there is a blonde female mermaid in it. The so-called mermaid means that the upper body is a human, and the part below the waist is a fish tail. This female mermaid looked very young. Her head was lying on the fish tank at the moment, and there was a hint of fear in her innocent eyes. Although I knew there was bound to be human trafficking, I didn't think I would have the chance to see mermaids. Thinking in his heart, Qinyang couldn't help but take a few more glances. At this time, the auctioneer rabbi began to introduce the product. I don't need to say more about the origin of this product. Mermaids have always been a scarce commodity, even in our auction house, there are only a few times a year. Therefore, this one the base price of the goods is 50 million baili, and each increase shall not be less than 1 million. Quote. As soon as the voice fell, the rich man on the second floor immediately shot 60 million. But the number didn't stay for 3 seconds, and then a second voice sounded. 65 million. 70 million. The price is soaring and there is no stagnant trend at all. Everyone in the Tomahawk Pirates was drooling at the sight. The price of a mermaid is hundreds of millions. This seems to be a good way to make a fortune. That, sir, what do you think? The bald man turned his questioning eyes to Qinyang in the seat behind him. No need. Qinyang spoke calmly. Soon, the auction of the mermaid came to an end. 130 million. 132 million. 140 million. When the voice of 140 million sounded, the hall suddenly fell into silence. The auctioneer's eyes swept across the crowd, and after thinking about it, he immediately said, "It seems that there is no higher price, 140 million once, twice, 3 times. Congratulations to this gentleman, who has taken the ownership of this mermaid." Quote. The buyer was a wealthy man on the second floor. Qinyang didn't know it and didn't bother to pay attention. This person seems to be very proud of buying a mermaid. A bunch of idiots, do you think I bought it to see it? The man thought proudly. Giving this kind of mermaid to Tenryubito, the benefits are far more than 140 million. No one cared what he thought, and the auction went on. Next, a piece of luxury goods are constantly being carried out. But for these, Qinyang has never been interested and never opened his mouth. After about an hour and a half, the auction was coming to an end. At this time, in order to stir up the atmosphere, the auctioneer finally took out Qinyang's goal. Next, a devil fruit will be auctioned. As soon as these words came out, there was a commotion at the scene. Whether it was the guests on the first floor or the pirates on the second floor, they were very moved. It seemed that many people came for this devil fruit. I don't need to explain more. It is the secret treasure of the sea. Although it will turn into a landlubber after eating it, it will also gain superhuman abilities. For example, the 4 emperors of the New World, Whitebeard, are the Paramesha devil fruit. The person who can shake the fruit. In the introduction, things were pushed up. Qinyang cheered up and looked at it. I saw a full-body purple devil fruit placed in a crystal glass. The surface of the fruit had a peculiar spiral pattern, and it looked like a large orange. This thing is mine. Whoever dares to rob me, don't blame me for being rude. Suddenly, somewhere on the second floor, a vicious voice sounded. Many people followed the sound, and their expressions changed slightly. That person is the captain of the evil shark pirates, with a bounty of 130 million. It is rumored that this person is very violent and has brutally killed marine soldiers. This time I aimed at the devil fruit. Did I eat it myself? A lot of rustling discussions continued to sound. Seeing this, the auctioneer immediately narrowed his eyes. This captain, please follow the rules and make trouble at the auction site. You have to bear the consequences. After a pause, he didn't seem ready to say more, and said bluntly, please rest assured, as long as you are inside the auction venue, you will ensure that the rules will not be broken. Then, regarding the auction of this devil fruit, the reserve price is 100 million, and the price will be increased each time. Not less than 10 million, the auction starts. 110 million. Almost at the very beginning, the ship of the evil shark pirates immediately quoted a price, and after he finished speaking, his fierce eyes swept over and issued a series of warnings. Many VIPs on the second floor were deterred by his vicious name and immediately chose to watch. At this time, Qinyang finally said, let's make an offer. What? The bald man was taken aback. I'll ask you to quote. Qinyang made a gesture and told the other party the price. Hearing this, the bald man was immediately entangled. If he opened his mouth, he would definitely be the captain of the Sin Shark. He knew that this man was powerful and cruel. It's just that the adult next to him has a bigger background, so big that he doesn't even dare to think of resisting. Offend anyone, and must not disobey the order of this one. As soon as he gritted his teeth, the bald man gave up, immediately raised his hand and shouted, 150 million. What? On the second floor, the captain of the evil shark pirates changed his expression, his eyes full of murderous intent cast down, the tomahawk pirates. Bald Captain Balian, what do you mean, you bastard, do you want to die? I don't want to die, so I only quoted the price if I didn't want to die. Bald-headed man secretly hated, since he has already offended him, he is not afraid anymore, and snorted coldly, I advise you not to be too arrogant, otherwise, if you provoke someone you can't afford, you won't know how to die. Hearing this, Captain Evil Shark's killing intent was stronger, but due to the rules, he did not dare to shoot at will. 200 million. He wanted to use the price to scare his opponents. As far as he knew, the Tomahawk pirates were just a small group of pirates, and it was impossible to have huge funds. However, as soon as his voice fell, the bald man raised his hand again before a moment passed. 300 million. You. Impossible, where did you get the money? Captain Evil Shark's eyes widened and he was a little anxious, and immediately shouted, 310 million. Lao Su is a dream, Kadri, how dare you fight with me? He threatened again. After hearing his words, there was a commotion at the scene, and even the auctioneer was shocked. Dream, the mysterious pirate group that Shadow Demon belongs to. Ying Yao was offered a bounty by Marine for the first time yesterday, a murderer of up to 500 million. I got the news that the Shadow Demon sneaked into the Holy Land at night and assassinated Holy Neradek. It's audacious. Assassinate Tenryubito, and it worked. A lot of people who have come to realize it later were shocked. Only Qin Yang looked weird, and the corner of his mouth under the cloak showed a hint of mockery. I didn't expect someone else to pretend to be Dream, he was a little subtle in his heart. The bald man was frightened, he quickly looked at Qin Yang, and hurriedly said, Sir. Ignore him, an idiot. Qin Yang shook his head and motioned for the other party to make another offer. Seeing that he was so determined, the bald man suddenly calmed down a lot. I still know Lord Ying Yao, this bastard must be fake, otherwise the lord around him will not be ignorant. Moreover, a strong person like Lord Ying Yao is only a member of the Dream, so how could an idiot be officer? After he figured it out, the bald man was furious and shouted, 400 million. As soon as these words came out, the scene was silent.